opinions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
And here we go again. It is raining in downtown Salt Lake, raining in other parts of the state as well. We've got wall-to-wall weather coverage of what to expect over the next couple of hours in just a moment. Want to introduce Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega, former spokesperson for Governor Herbert. You've had multiple positions within like 3 different gubernatorial campaigns, and you currently advise candidates on how to run for office and win.
and eventually, occasionally I get to come hang out with you. And I guess there's a one Kaysville guy minimum on this show, because if Dave's not here, then I come in and Utah's hometown is well represented again.
Former sports anchor, former editor here at KSL.
No.
Too bad you didn't do weather.
That's right. It's the only thing I haven't done, but I'd love to try it. I think I've got the green screen skills.
Let's try it right now.
Dave and Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top local story.
And that is weather, wild weather hitting Valley and beyond. Yesterday, Marty, you were driving to your hometown of Kaysville, and you said it was like a river.
Insane. Trying to get to the west side, there was water standing, probably about 3 feet of water underneath the I-15 overpass. Had to kind of double back around and found a new development that had water gushing out of it like a river. I had to sort of detour 3 times to make it all the way home, only to find the Holmes Creek that runs relatively close to my house, usually about 6 inches deep, was about 9 feet deep and up into people's yards. It was the highest I've ever seen it. And everybody was out trying to kind of play around it. That was the one dangerous thing that, as a dad, I was like, everyone stay away from that moving water.
Adam Small is out in it this morning. Good morning, Adam. Where are you at right now?
Morning, guys. Yeah, I'm actually out by Davis Tech, where we actually got a couple of pictures submitted by people over our email line yesterday, where we kind of the same thing you guys were just talking about. There were people actually playing in a pond that's formed right in front of like the softball field on the soccer field that's used right out here on the front lawn, right by Main Street here in Kaysville. And it looked like the water was significantly deeper yesterday. It looks like it was getting up towards the softball field itself, towards the dugout. But now it's kind of receded back into like the excess portion of grass where they use a small soccer field. But we saw pictures of people playing out in that Kaysville. Definitely wasn't the biggest area of rain, but it definitely got a lot, almost about 1.5 inches. And this morning, still a fully formed pond out here on the front lawn. I know these things are used as like drainage basins, so I think they're meant to catch water. But definitely a sign. I mean, it's interesting to see after we were baking in the heat just about a week ago. So.
Yeah, and Davis Tech up on the east side of Kaysville, next to Davis High School, is where he's talking about. Onto the west side, I mean, everything rolls down that hill, right? And so when you get out to the west, I think the water was building up a little bit more onto the west side of the city.
Adam, I also know that West Valley City got slammed as well, and there was a homeowner there that had just feet of water in his basement.
Yeah, so he spoke with KSL TV last night. So around 1:30, he told them that water just started coming into his basement. It's about 10 feet tall, that room in his home. And he said that just within, I think just over the course of that afternoon, it completely filled with water from the floor to the ceiling. Thankfully, though, as we've seen so many times through the minor flooding we saw during the spring and just other times we see disaster strike in Utah, neighbors come in and save the day. They help them move all their belongings out onto the sidewalk, out of the water. Also help them pump a lot of that water out of the basement. They say they were specifically dealing with problems at that house. The homeowner told KSL that it looked like a clogged culvert right behind their house, was allowing a lot of that rainwater to just spill into their backyard and then it turned into the basement. But they're still trying to deal with stuff out there today. I mean, West Valley got slammed. They got an inch more than Kaysville, and Kaysville got quite a bit. So.
Adam Small, live in the Davis County area for us right now. Programming note, in about 7 minutes, the city manager for West Valley City calling into the show to talk about rainwater, the issues that they've had there, and also we'll ask him about that culvert. Let's bring in KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson to give us an update. I heard that West Valley got like over 2.5 inches in just, a short amount of time yesterday.
Yeah, they had a storm parked over. For the first half of the day, they had a training storm, which is a thunderstorm that just keeps building back on itself. Doesn't really move. They picked up 2.67 inches of rain. Plus a little bit this morning. It definitely more than enough to cause some urban flash flooding. So I totally believe it. You get a culvert that's supposed to guide that water elsewhere, and it, takes it into your backyard, that's a problem.
So maybe just to give some perspective, if you got 2.7 inches of rain, but you got it over a 24-hour period, is that sort of a flooding concern?
Right.
But you got it in a much tighter period. I just wonder, like, how much time would have to pass for that much rain to sort of soak in? And
Right. That's a really good question you ask, Marty, because it was all about the time frame that it was received. If you got 2.67 in 24 hours, that would probably still lead to a little bit of ponding and minor urban flooding. But this was received within the matter of like 1 hour, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And so very short amount of time. You know, the Salt Lake Valley averages maybe an inch of rain over the months of August and July combined. We doubled that in West Valley in less than a couple of hours.
Where is this storm today going to hit the hardest? What are your maps showing you, Matt?
Yeah, and we've already seen kind of some of this, and I think we hit on it a little bit, is up towards Corinne, Honeyville, extreme northern Utah, up towards the Box Elder area. They've seen, I just checked radar estimates, they've already picked up an inch in less than an hour. And, you know,
oh my goodness.
So there are some heavy pockets out there, but we're towards the tail end of this thing. It's already starting to clear out. But again, up towards, you know, that northern Box Elder County, they're still dealing with it.
So this thing will be out of the Salt Lake Valley by this afternoon, and then the sky's going to show themselves again.
Yeah, right.
Are we going to see blue again? Okay.
Life should resume.
Everybody can get off the ark later this afternoon.
You guys, there was such a loud thunderclap at my home yesterday afternoon that I did think it was potentially the end of times. It was so loud. I just came out of my skin. It was just insane. And I know everybody was experiencing it. And we got just slammed in South Jordan once the wind started kicking up. I heard Harriman got slammed. What about like Utah County? How did they fare?
Yeah, Utah County got slammed pretty good. I actually had a viewer reach out saying that Sleepy Ridge Golf Course in the Orem Vineyard line got slammed and flooded on all 3 floors. So it sounds like there were some more roof leaks out there. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's just a crazy amount of rain to come down in such a short amount of time.
Matt Johnson, thank you so much for, as always, jumping in studio, walking us through what to expect over the next few hours. Hopefully, those people up north fare okay with all that rain coming down. It's still coming down right now?
Let's hope.
Yeah. Okay. Next, West Valley City Manager. We talked about, how much did you say they got? 2.67, Matt? 2.67 just just like yesterday.
Yeah, an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. Okay, West Valley City Manager Wayne Pyle with us next. Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hi, it's Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Why should you start your day with us?
We have decades of news experience between us.
And we take your trust seriously.
Come here for news tomorrow, 5 to 9.
On KSL.
It's that time again.
Teachers are getting creative in order to get the supplies they need for their classes this fall.
And it's not just kids who are anxious about the first day.
Families struggling with back-to-school supplies do have some options to get help.
Come here for tips and ideas to get what you need and stay in the black for back to school. This week on KSL News Radio.
Amanda, we have a lot of responsibilities as parents. You feel obligated to teach your kids many things, if not all things in life sometimes, which is a little overwhelming. But it's surprising how little we talk to our kids about money.
Financial responsibility.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so excited to tell you about what UCCU is doing, Utah Community Credit Union. As part of their mobile banking, they now have this thing called Learn and Earn.
Learn and Earn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quizzes and trivia. And every time anybody in the family completes a topic, you earn points that can accrue and you can redeem for gift cards from places like Amazon, Apple, Walmart, and others.
So literally, they are paying you to learn about financial responsibility.
It really is a great way to go, and it's fun for the whole family. Learn and Earn is part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart youth banking program that helps kids, teens, and parents have fun while learning and becoming financially literate together.
UCCU Mobile Banking now presents Learn and Earn. UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. And let's face it, it's time to update the look of your home's exterior. When was that thing built? In the 50s, 70s, 90s, the 2000s? Well, it's looking like it. Faded siding, drafty windows, leaky gutters. It's time to take action now. RGS Exteriors has been taking Utah homes from drab to fab for over 5 generations. We only use the highest quality materials, like James Hardy siding and gutter topper gutter covers. You will be blown away by how much different and better and awesome your house can look. Your neighbors will be jealous, your home value will go up, and most of all, you're going to love it. Everything we do comes with our industry-leading 10-year everything guarantee, so you can sleep like a baby, knowing if anything goes wrong, you're 100% covered. For a free estimate on your gutters, windows, siding, or anything on your outside of your home, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
Depending on the day of the week and what you're watching on TV usually dictates the amount of fright you're experiencing. I mean, if you really pay attention, the world's gonna end. Okay, not really, but it sure seems like it. So if you were to prepare for adversity, war, pandemics, economic downturns, food shortages, monster inflation, and don't even get me started on gas prices, how would you do it? How would you prepare, really? It's quite easy with the 5-Day Preparedness Challenge. Are you ready to prepare your family for emergencies? Join the 5-Day Preparedness Challenge today. For a limited time, get an unprecedented 97% off. That's right, 97% off. Don't miss this deal. It's expert emergency preparedness training, the ultimate checklist, an assessment, and support group, along with a 100% money-back guarantee. Getting prepared just got simple. Visit preparednesschallenge.com. Preparednesschallenge.com. Take the challenge at preparednesschallenge.com.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Tim and Amanda.
In 20 minutes of listening to Utah's Morning News, you'll hear every breaking story that's happening.
To travel to work, you're going to find out how much time it's going to take you to get there.
You'll hear stories that help you address the problems, not just what the problems are.
Wake up with Utah's Morning News with Tim and Amanda, 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, cleanup efforts are underway this morning following the heavy rainstorms yesterday and more storms on the way today. Second, Utah is getting nearly $600,000 to help keep lead out of drinking water at schools and child care facilities. And third, gas prices jumping again, with Utah's average sitting around $4.09 this morning. We're going to look for a high today of only 82 degrees and with rain downtown at 64 this hour. Now back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
We are watching these rain showers right outside studio here in downtown Salt Lake at Broadcast House. So we know a lot of folks, you're still getting rained on. Matt Johnson, of course, our meteorologist, said, a couple more hours of this, it'll be moving out. What we're also seeing, your text messages. We know that there's a significant number of power outages right around the Capitol. We're going to keep you posted on Rocky Mountain Power's progress there. But it looks like, Marty, close to maybe around 1,400 customers right now experiencing power outages right around the state capitol in downtown Salt Lake City. Marty Carpenter in on a very soggy day for a vacationing Dave Noriega.
Yeah, great to be here with you. I know that weather has turned into the big story because that's what everyone wants to talk about when we get that much rain. And as we learned just in the last segment, it's not just that we got a lot of rain. You could handle that amount of rain almost if it came over a 24 or 36-hour period, but it was in that tight little window, in some cases even an hour, that it was just too much. West Valley City getting pounded almost 2.7 inches, double what you usually get in the July and August months, and West Valley City got it in an hour. And so we want to talk to Wayne Pyle, who is the West Valley City manager. Wayne, are you drying out at all in West Valley, or is everything still ankle deep at this point?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Yes, we're drying out a little bit and keeping a wary eye out for whatever comes this afternoon or today. But, yeah, so far we're recovering pretty well.
We heard from one of the homeowners who said they had just had feet and feet of water in his basement, felt like there was a clogged culvert behind his house that kind of didn't take the water where it should have gone and instead took it into his basement. What can you update us regarding that? Can you give us any updates?
Yeah, we did have quite a few reports, and even within our own facilities of various levels of damage. And again, just like you guys were mentioning a moment ago, it just came down to so much water coming down in so short of a time. You know, all the storm drain systems are designed with particular weather events, as they're called, in mind, and certain levels of precipitation coming down in a given period, and we were just overwhelmed yesterday.
With all that water, I think people watch it and the gutters fill up and all these spillways fill up. Where is it supposed to go? Like, if once it eventually leaves West Valley City, where are you trying to channel all that water?
Yeah, okay, so great question. So the storm drain system eventually is going to end up with water going out into the Jordan River, eventually out to the Great Salt Lake. That's actually one of the reasons why we put such a large effort education-wise into helping people to realize where that water goes. So don't dump stuff that isn't rainwater down the storm drains. Try to keep your driveways and streets clean, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's where it all ends up eventually.
Wayne Pyle, city manager for West Valley City, on the line with us. West Valley just got pummeled with a lot of rain in a very short amount of time. Some folks reporting some flooding in their basements. One guy said he had up to like feet and feet in his basement from that culvert. If people see problems in that area, should they call City Hall? I mean, what should they do if they need help, Wayne?
Yeah, absolutely. Call City Hall just from a reporting standpoint. If nothing else, it gives us the information of where some of these spots and facilities in the system got overwhelmed. We can go out, we can check and see if there's any kind of blockages and clear those out. We do a regular, I think it's 3 times a year, we get through the storm drain system with what are called, Vector trucks, sucking out various, dirt and leaves and debris out of the storm drains themselves. But yeah, again, if you do have those events, call us in, and that gives us the intel we need to go out there and check the system. And that is one of the things that was a little bit of a silver lining yesterday, is that our Public Works, and also, by the way, I can give some notice to UDOT, because 3500 South, where a lot of the flooding happens, is a UDOT facility, and our crews were out really pretty quickly checking and trying to help the drainage along, and so it's good to know. Good to get those calls in.
Wayne Pyle, West Valley City Manager, he's out there helping them dry out. Sunny days are ahead, Wayne, so keep your head above water in the meantime.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks for joining the show. Want to fly over now to Washington, D.C., where former President Donald Trump is expected to appear in court today on yet another first arraignment.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
If you're following along at home, it can get a little bit confusing, but this is the latest indictment handed up by a grand jury. It has to do with the events that led up, and the federal prosecutors call it conspiracies, that led up and include the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Ike Ejachi of ABC News, standing by live in Washington, D.C. Any sign of the president yet, or the former president?
Not at the moment. We're still about 4.5 hours away until he's expected to appear at the federal court here in Washington, D.C. But there have been crowds lining up since yesterday of those wanting to get a good spot of themselves in front of the federal courthouse. And essentially what we're seeing is former President Trump facing 4 counts as part of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation, which are conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and, of course, conspiracy against rights, all of which Trump has denied all wrongdoing. Now, what we're seeing right now is former President Donald Trump expected to appear before a magistrate judge for his arraignment. He's expected to fly from Bedminster, New Jersey, from his estate there to Washington, D.C. He won't be placed under arrest, and he won't be in handcuffs. He'll just appear for this summons. He will have his fingerprints taken digitally and will be required to give his social security number and his date of birth and address, but there'll be no mugshot because essentially his picture is publicly available everywhere, and there'll likely be a short, kind of expected proceedings, which he's expected to plead not guilty.
Is it normal in a situation like this for the alleged or defendant, whatever the right legal term might be, to appear for these types of arraignments, or is it usually optional? And if it's optional, what went into the decision for former President Trump to appear, and to which side is that an advantage?
Yeah, I heard it being reported that he could have appeared virtually, but chose to appear in person.
This is just essentially the choice by what we're seeing now from the prosecution and obviously from the defense. Him appearing in court, obviously it was a summons requesting him to appear in court. Obviously, this is a decision by his legal team, but the summons was for him to appear in court today by 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It was. And then talk about the security. What do you see there around the courthouse? And this is in Washington, D.C., that he has been charged because of this. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a D.C. It's right out of D.C. because that's where a lot of this is alleged to have taken place.
Correct. So the classified documents case is being tried in Florida because that's exactly where the alleged crimes taken place. These crimes, the crimes of alleged conspiracy and the alleging of stopping or halting an official proceeding, that's all on federal grounds here in Washington, D.C. Obviously, the official proceeding was at the Capitol. The conspiracy happened while he was in office in Washington, D.C. So that's why the jurisdiction is here in Washington, D.C. They're federal crimes. And what we're seeing right now is essentially a really beefed up security presence around the area, the federal courthouse, that is. The U.S. Secret Service and other law enforcement agencies, they conducted a really thorough walkthrough to the federal courthouse, including the courtroom where Trump will be appearing. That happened yesterday. Law enforcement sources told ABC News that the barriers were expected to go up around the Capitol before the former president's appearance in court. That's happening today. And the U.S. Capitol Police Chief, Thomas Major, he essentially said that the department, they're working with local police as well as National Park Service, Secret Service, Federal Protective Service, all these agencies and entities essentially to ensure proper security and safety during this entire hearing.
Ike Ejiochi of ABC News, live for us in Washington, D.C., as former President Donald Trump expected to arrive in D.C. for his initial appearance on these latest charges. It is really complicated to start following all this. When you first saw the headlines, what were your thoughts?
I just thought, how can anyone keep track of all these charges that's going on? You'd sort of get numb to it as a layperson, and we'll get more into the politics of it and the imaging on it as well.
Well, I'm excited that you're here today, Marty Carpenter, and today for Dave Noriega, because you have advised on campaigns. You worked for Governor Gary Herbert. I want to get your thoughts on what will this do for President Trump politically.
I have thoughts.
All right. Stay tuned.
KSL News Time is 9:30. I'm Tim Hughes. Let's look at some of our top stories this hour. Utah's getting nearly $600,000 to help keep lead out of drinking water at schools and daycares. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has details.
The money is coming from a grant program made possible under the bipartisan infrastructure law. KSL.com reports Utah has already done a lot to keep lead out of drinking water systems. However, there are still lead pipes in the ground all over the country, even though they've been banned since the late 70s. The money will not only help with monitoring, but it can also be used to remove and replace old piping, water fountains, or almost anything in a drinking water system.
The CDC says there's no safe level of lead exposure for kids and say it can cause brain and nervous system damage. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Former President Donald Trump due before a magistrate judge in Washington later today to hear the charges against him related to the January 6th riot at the Capitol. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy reports.
Donald Trump is expected to fly here to Washington at mid-afternoon. His arraignment shouldn't last long. The former president will enter a plea, and conditions for his release will be set. This city is used to tight security protocols, and the federal courthouse here has seen plenty of high-profile defendants. The Secret Service says it's working with 5 other law enforcement agencies which guard the courthouse and its surroundings to ensure the highest levels of safety.
Security is extra tight at Washington, D.C. this morning following a fake threat of a shooter called in yesterday. The Sundance Film Festival has announced changes for 2024. The festival's in-person screenings are set to kick off on January 18th at noon. The event used to start in the evening. The festival director says he hopes the earlier schedule will encourage people to arrive the night before and not miss any of the events. Your money at this moment, we've turned mixed. The NASDAQ all of a sudden went into the positive here. We're up almost 11 points, so just a fraction. The S&P is down 7.5, and the Dow is still losing about 38 points this hour. Coming up, temps running 10 to 15 degrees lower than normal for a change. We'll check the forecast next. KSL News Time, 9:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-330-1991. That's 1-800-330-1991. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-330-1991. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
With the economy the way it is, you're probably staying put. So invest in your home, your number one asset, with beautiful custom replacement windows from Advanced Window Products. They're a local Utah company building beautiful vinyl framed and insulated double pane windows for 37 years right here in Salt Lake City. Advanced Window Products will save you money on your energy bill. Get security features to keep your family safe. And at Advanced Window Products, it's all custom. And the best part? They're local. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So there's no middleman markup. You save on the highest quality windows in Utah. Plus, Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. For a limited time, they offer 60-month 0% financing. And right now, get $2,000 off 10 windows or more. They're working 8 weeks out. So make the call now. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100 or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
We have emergency traffic and weather together here, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Heather, where's the problem?
It's still southbound I-15. Traffic is at a crawl between I-215 South Interchange in Murray, all the way down to 114th South in Draper. That is due to an earlier crash that happened several hours ago, but the two right lanes and shoulder remain blocked for crews to clean up a spill that happened along with that crash. You also have pretty big delays northbound I-15 from Point of the Mountain into Draper. A lot of people are looking at that southbound crash and also wet roads. And the connecting ramp from eastbound I-80 to go southbound I-215 from the airport remains closed due to a jackknife semi. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today's high, 82 degrees. Some scattered thunderstorms around the valley. Highs are running 10 to 15 degrees below seasonal normals. Things do dry out starting tomorrow, and the highs will jump into the upper 80s and 90s to start next week. Right now, back to where we started the morning. 66 degrees at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
I know it's hard to keep track of the former president's many, many different criminal charges and indictments. Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega. You spent a significant amount of time helping candidates kind of craft their campaigns. And in a few minutes, we're going to speak specifically to you about what you think this may or may not do to his presidential run. But when you first opened up the app, the news app, or got the alert on your phone,
KSL.com.
KSL.com. Okay, good. Good answer. Better answer would be KSLNewsRadio.com.
KSLNewsRadio.com. That's what I meant. The greater KSL.com family.
We are one family for sure. What were your thoughts? This latest indictment comes as an alert.
Yeah, so I was at the office yesterday, took a break after lunch and said, let's see what's going on in the world, check the headlines. And I turned to everybody in my office and I said, I'm having a hard time keeping track of this. And because I'm having a hard time keeping track of it, if there's always some kind of big news, you get desensitized to the big news. Like that was sort of the theme of the Trump administration is
agree.
We're on to the next big thing, and you get numb to these charges. And I think my sense is, and everyone looks at things through their own, weird prism and perspective, but I just think people are getting really numb to these and they're hard to keep track of. And there are different times he has to appear, different charges, different allegations of charges. It all sort of starts to turn into white noise in a way.
I will say this, of all of I worked for the FBI, so I had top secret clearance. I understood the rules regarding top secret documents, and that case out of Mar-a-Lago, out of Florida, of course it bothers me. But this one I think is probably the most significant. I want to give our listeners some of the details of this one. We're also going to speak live to KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas about his thoughts. But the president will appear in court this afternoon. It will happen at 2:00 and I call him the president, and our listeners are going to stop calling him the president. He's the former president. The former president will appear in court this afternoon in Washington, D.C. at 2:00. So right smack in the middle of Boyd Matheson's show. And we will take you there live as soon as there are developments, of course. But this has to do with his loss of the 2020 election. And then prosecutors in this indictment allege that he concocted this multifaceted scheme with the help of co-conspirators, his team of attorneys like Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, to defraud the people across the United States. Obstruct that official proceeding that was the Congress's, duty to certify the election, and all those people rushed the Capitol, and lawmakers had to kind of run out of the room to protect themselves. And then this charge is also included: conspiring to take our rights away as voters. And Greg Skordas, I think that was perhaps, to me, that hit me as perhaps the most significant of these 4 charges that he's facing today in court. The conspiracy against the right to vote and have one's vote counted. And then prosecutors lay out the case about the scheme to get fake electors to cast their ballots, and the pressure that President Trump is alleged to have put across many states on elected officials to change how the vote count turned out. What are your thoughts on this latest indictment, Greg?
Well, I think you spelled it out really well. It involves 4 counts, 2 of which are conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding and obstructing an official proceeding. And just for the record, hundreds of the January 6th rioters were charged with those exact same counts. So those are the ones that we've been dealing with the people that showed up for the what's been called the insurrection. And many of those have gone to trial, and many of those have been convicted. Others have pled guilty. But those are charges that we've seen a lot of times. Trump has now got 2 additional charges that we haven't seen before, including conspiracy to defraud the United States and conspiracy to violate the right to vote. In other words, defrauding the United States from their duly elected president, which would have been President Biden at the time, and a conspiracy to violate the right to vote by trying to convince several states that they needed to change their voting records, their voting tallies, in order to help him. So those are some pretty serious additional charges that we haven't seen before in connection with the January 6th insurrection.
Greg, there's sort of the idea of the charge being laid against former President Trump himself, when in those positions, you're getting a lot of counsel from political advisors, from legal advisors who are saying, hey, this is the next thing we can challenge. When you get into a political campaign, political race, at many levels along the way, you're trying to make sure things are run the right way. You're trying to challenge things that maybe if they went a different way would go in your direction. Think of that in the state, right? Like when people gather signatures to be on the ballot, you can challenge whether or not those signatures are valid, right? And so you're getting certain legal advice to say we could challenge these things and this could swap things into our favor in a certain way. where is the line really drawn, I guess, in part between when are you actually trying to win the game within the rules, and these charges seem to be saying you've crossed the line somewhere and now you're trying to change the game only to rig it in your favor. Is that a decent way of kind of thinking about what most campaigns do and then what this one is being charged with?
I think it's an incredible way to describe how this one is spelled out. I think that's the best way to describe it, because part of the government's burden in this case is to prove that Donald Trump knew that what's been called the big lie was in fact a lie. And so if he honestly believed that he won the race, if he honestly felt that some of these states were not doing their tallies correctly, and that's why he challenged them, that's why he brought these lawsuits, and he made these claims, then he wouldn't have technically committed the crime. So that's why the government has brought in all of these other co-conspirators, and they've also claimed that they spoke with Vice President Vice President Pence, who told him, hey, this is not true. Justice Department officials who told him this is not true. White House attorneys, campaign staff members, some state legislators and officials. And then he was also told by several state and federal courts that his claims were not true. So the government thinks they have a good case for proving that he knew these allegations were not true, even when he continued to make them. Of course, he's going to do exactly what you just said, and that is, well, I was meeting with attorneys, I was talking to other people, and I felt that my claims were valid.
Yeah, and so do you think, does that ultimately have any kind of legal standing? I mean, is this a situation where, hey, the buck has to stop somewhere, and
it's
ultimately,
the attorney's fault?
Yeah, ultimately you make a decision based on the advice given to you by whatever group of advisors, attorneys, political advisors, or others. You had to make the decision on how to move forward, and that's why the charges come against the former president. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's very accurate, and that's why they've brought in all of these so-called co-conspirators, including his former attorneys, including Department of Justice attorney, including Rudy Giuliani, because a lot of these people they're claiming conspired with him and knew that the statements were not true, and those people are all going to be confronted now by the government and told, look, do you want to sit next to Trump during the trial, or do you want to sit next to the government and testify against him? And they're going to have a hard decision to make whether they want to be witnesses or co-defendants to what the government is now claiming is a lie. And we'll see how that shakes out when we get closer to trial.
Well, Greg, I wish we had time to read the 45-page indictment aloud. I read it last night, and the government's case does spell out point by point the number of different officials within President Trump's circles, including former Vice President Mike Pence, who repeatedly told President Trump at the time that his claims were false, that they had no proof. I think one said something to the effect of there's no way you're not leaving the White House, the Oval Office in January. I mean, it was just very, very clearly spelled out by so many to him that his claims were false. And yet the government alleges he continued down that road and did all kinds of things to try to pressure state officials in many, many states to flip the election in his favor. So today's court appearance will be brief, correct?
Oh, yeah, it'll be very brief, just the entry of a not guilty plea, and then the judge will set dates.
But this could be a very long road. I mean, he's got a number of cases against him. This is not the only one, right? I mean, we know it's going to be years of this.
Well, it certainly could be up to a year. I mean, it could be a little bit longer. Some of the government obviously is pushing this case. They want the trial before the November election. Trump obviously wants to put everything off until after the election in hope that he gets elected and maybe can pardon himself or get a new Department of Justice in place that will dismiss the charges. So there's going to be a real fight here as to how and when these three matters are going to get to trial.
Greg Skordas, KSL legal analyst, with his insight on what the former president is facing today and a little bit of thought on what it means for all of us going forward as we head into a presidential election year next year. Greg, thanks so much for your insight.
Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega, and you have been involved in several campaigns, coaching candidates, advising candidates, helping candidates win. Can I ask you all kinds of questions
Sure, please.
In a few minutes about what you feel like this will do to President Trump's run for the White House?
Dave and Dujanovic.
Before Dave and Debbie get started each day, this station is all news all morning.
And later today, we follow up on those stories as you drive home.
Get important news all morning and all afternoon.
Here on KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio. We have a new crash northbound I-15 right near the Parish Lane exit in Centerville. 2 left lanes and shoulder are blocked. Traffic is quickly backing up toward the Bountiful area. And we still have miles and miles of delay southbound I-15 between Murray and Draper due to an earlier crash, also blocking 2 right lanes of traffic. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and going back to school, what a great time to get into the NPS store near you. There's one in Orem, there's one in Layton, and 2 right here in Salt Lake. And any day you're going to find all the great merchandise, brand new stuff, 30 to 70% off. But then when NPS adds a sale on top of that, it's really time to stock up, like bags and backpacks, perfect for back to school, an additional 50% off. And then, of course, how about the pants? 50% off, 40% off, clothing, accessories, and so much more. It's all waiting for you at NPS. And of course, NPS has all the regular stuff too. Groceries, amazing things over in the industrial store. You're going to be really impressed at what you're going to find at NPS. When you find a great deal, don't pass it up. Buy it right then. You snooze, you lose. It's NPS with 3 locations.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why most of our over 18,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with the needs analysis, where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no-money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Home is where the heart is. It's also where the office is, the school is, the restaurant is, the stadium is. Basically, your home is now the center for everything. So right now might just be the perfect time to upgrade your living space to one that has, well, a little more space. If you've been thinking about building, with home prices leveling out and material costs coming down, right now may be the perfect time to start building your dream home. Let the construction loan experts at Golden West Credit Union help make building your dream home a reality with a convenient low-rate construction loan. We also offer one-time close options so you can secure your construction loan and mortgage conveniently at the same time. Get a personalized rate quote right from the comfort of your own home or with a lending expert at any Golden West branch, or apply in minutes online today at gwcu.org. Golden West Credit Union, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 440574.
We'll take care of you.
At Fisher Investments, our clients know we have their backs.
How do your clients know that?
Because Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, the highest standard for a financial advisor. It means we're there for our clients and always put their interests first.
So wait, you do it because you have to?
No, we do it because it's the right thing to do. Our clients trust us with their retirement savings, and we know how important that responsibility is. So we take the time to really get to know them.
Get to know them how?
We make sure we understand their unique goals, finances, health, family, and lifestyle so we can tailor their portfolio to their specific needs. Our goal is to help them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Sounds like a big responsibility. You must make big commissions then, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We have one single transparent fee that's structured so we do better when our clients do better. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you are switching to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, former President Donald Trump due before a judge in D.C. later today to hear the charges against him that are related to the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Second, Utah getting almost $600,000 to help keep lead out of drinking water at schools and daycares. And third, the Sundance Film Festival says they're changing their screening schedule this year with events starting at noon instead of starting in the evening. We'll look for a high today of only 82 degrees and back to where we started the morning, 66 now in Salt Lake City. Let's get you back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Former President Donald Trump in court this afternoon at 2 o'clock our time. He'll be in a D.C. court facing a new indictment regarding his words, the Stop the Steal campaign. And former Vice President and now presidential candidate Mike Pence shared his reaction to this latest indictment.
For my part, I want people to know that I had no right to overturn the election, and that what the president maintained that day, and frankly has said over and over again over the last 2.5 years, is completely false. And it's contrary to what our Constitution and the laws of this country provide.
Okay, that's former Vice President Mike Pence, also running for the Republican nomination nomination for the White House. I want to pick the brain of Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega. Marty has advised political candidates over the years. You also served for Governor Herbert and his administration as well. And you've helped run elections and run campaigns. So perfect person for this job today. In for Dave Noriega. Okay, so I want to talk about Vice President Pence in just a moment and whether this latest indictment will help him in any way, kind of just get noticed by the Republicans. Let's talk. I want you to kind of share your thoughts on how this will impact, if at all, former President Trump's run for the presidency again.
Well, we mentioned before that part of this is you get so many indictments. Like there's just constantly news about charges coming against Trump, charges being leveled against him, now charges filed, now he's going to court. I think that a lot of people will fall into the category of there's just so much noise that it becomes white noise. There's so much going on there that's hard to track. You know, we talk about this in politics, that there's this idea of the simplest message wins, and indictment after indictment after indictment, charge after charge, whatever, those get really complex and they're not a simple message. You could form them into a simple message. It's just, hey, this guy's dirty, right? That's the simple version of that. But what we get is sort of this nonstop water torture of like, it's drip, drip, drip. And that's what we're hearing. It becomes white noise. Whereas the former president, Donald Trump, has a pretty simple message on this, right? Hey, it's fake news. Hey, it's not accurate, right? He can just deny it, and that's a really simple message. And the simplest message usually wins. That's the one that usually sticks in people's mind. Whoever can simplify that narrative the most. And so that, I think, is what really gets driven here, is ultimately it's really complex, and I don't have time to think through the charges. He's saying it's fake. Ultimately, you tend to start to drift toward the simplest message.
So the idea that he's charged in the classified documents case out of Florida, that he's facing charges regarding the Stormy Daniels issue in New York, that he could face state charges in Georgia for what took place there with that phone call to the Secretary of State there that was all caught on tape. And now this latest indictment in D.C. That he's appearing in court on today may not register at all.
I think if you pulled the average person on the street, there's someone walking right by the window right now. If I went out and grabbed that gentleman and said, all right, Donald Trump has been charged with something. What's the general charge against Donald Trump? A person would probably go, I don't know, something about the thing at the Capitol, right? That's about as detailed of a response as you are very likely to get. You'll find someone who will know it as well as you know it, or know it as well as people who listen to the show regularly will know it. But the average voter, that vote counts just as much as my vote or your vote. And if that's where they are saying, I don't know, they're always kind of saying he does stuff. But I'm picking up on the idea that he says that it's a lie or it's not true. And as time goes on, it seems like more and more some stuff that he said wasn't true at the time, it turns out to have not been true. And that just kind of, it all gets into like this gray area. And so I just don't know that it's the thing that's going to drive people to vote one way or the other ultimately.
Does sympathy work in his favor? Like at some point it feels like, my goodness, the pile on is really piling on. And this guy's, now using campaign funds. It's been reported to the tune of millions to help pay legal fees. I mean, does the voter feel sympathy?
Yeah, I mean, I said that the message was fake news. Really, I think the message is becoming in relation to all the court filings, to all these charges against him, is it's the Biden administration coming after me because they hate me, right? It's not that I did anything wrong; they're just after me. And that message, I think, starts to resonate with anybody who's ever not liked their government at any level for some reason. Like, yeah, you know what? Hey, I've been the little guy who got a traffic ticket I didn't think I should get, or I've been the guy who got a fine, even a non-government thing. I'm the guy who got the letter from my HOA saying my grass was too long. I just want people to leave me alone. I'm with Trump on this. I just want I want them to leave me alone. You can see how it doesn't take a long train of thought to get there, and that's sort of how people ultimately settle into which way they are leaning and how they're going to vote ultimately.
Grateful for Marty Carpenter's insights. He's helped run campaigns, political campaign, worked for former Governor Gary
Nobody
Herbert.
who was ever indicted, I should specify. I never had to do the court type stuff with any of the candidates I worked with, thankfully.
Vice President Pence has been couched as the hero in all of this because he did not back down to President Trump's demands, public demands, that he not certify the election or consider the fake electors or whatever that alleged scheme was. Pence is like, no, you don't have. You've got false information. I'm going to go do my job and certify the election. Where does he stand? Does he stand to gain anything from this? Any ground?
I don't know.
He needs to gain ground right now.
So I guess there's two ways to answer that question. One, I think every time something like this pops up and Mike Pence can point out where he was, that he was stalwart and the defender of the Constitution and such, that's a benefit to him. Anytime that it's a matter of, but in all that, he's still sort of positioning himself against the guy who's the front runner, and that's the really tough part. Like he everything you would tell your kid, hey, grow up to be strong and do something like this when faced with adversity. That's an example you would give, but for some reason, it just isn't translating into anything that's helping him in the polls. That doesn't mean it ultimately won't help him achieve a secondary goal, which is maybe to be a spoiler against Trump. We'll see how it plays out.
In 20 seconds, give me the biggest issue your problem you see with Mike Pence resonating.
There's a lot of stake there, and it just doesn't seem to be any sexy sizzle to it, right? Like there's so much. He is handsome. He is articulate. He is conservative. He is stalwart. He's stood up when people have been in opposition to him. But for some reason, he just doesn't have the Q rating, right? He just doesn't have where people say, I just like that guy. And that's a tough thing. If you don't have that, it's really tough to manufacture that.
Got a big lineup in the 10 o'clock hour. Congressional District 2 candidate Celeste Malloy calling the show, and also Representative Burgess Owens calling the show as well at 10:20.
Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. The monsoon surge is ongoing, but not for long. KSL News Radio's Peter Johnston has details.
It's showers and thunderstorms from Layton to Cache County this morning. The National Weather Service is around noon today. The storm system will move away from Utah. Heavy rain can still fall, though, like in Corinne and Box Elder County, which saw an inch of water fall in just 45 minutes. Once the surge is gone, dry and warm air will follow until at least mid-next week.
Yesterday's storm dumped 2 months' worth of rain on northern Utah. A hazmat crew is called out to I-15 in Draper after a semi hauling fuel got into a crash this morning in the southbound lanes. No injuries reported. There was some fuel leaking from the truck. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Texas Governor Greg Abbott taking on new criticism for the boys in the Rio Grande after several bodies were discovered in the river. ABC's Maria Villarreal has more.
2 people found dead in the southern part of the Rio Grande River. One of the bodies found stuck in the barriers installed last month by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. While authorities are still investigating, they say the cause of death and nationality of the victims is unknown.
Governor Abbott has said the boys are part of the state's responsibility to protect the border. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day just a bit, 32 points. The NASDAQ barely down, about 2.6 points. And our KSL weather, things are going to dry out this afternoon. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The name's Osborne, Josh Osborne, and I'm so excited to announce our 00 summer sale here at Volkswagen Southtown.
Summers are for thrills, chills, and hot deals. Get a new high-tech VW for nothing down and no payments for 90 days. Our 00 agents are standing by to make sure you pay nothing down and have no payments for 3 months, so you can achieve your top secret mission this summer.
Come see why we're Utah's #1 Volkswagen dealer. Get to VWSouthtown.com.
2022 VW rankings. Financing through VCI on select models OAC. See dealer for details.
The UACPA supports certified professional accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development for an ever-changing financial world. Find a CPA at uacpa.org.
Emergency traffic brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, we still have about 4 miles of stop-and-go traffic southbound I-15 between 7200 South and Midvale and 114 South in the South Jordan-Draper area. This is due to an earlier crash. It's still blocking 2 right lanes and the right shoulder, but most of the emergency vehicles have pulled away, so traffic isn't quite as slow going past all those flashing lights that aren't there anymore. So hopefully we'll start seeing those delays ease up. You still have the connecting ramp from eastbound I-80 coming from the airport to head southbound I-215's west belt. That ramp is closed due to a jackknife semi. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, rain showers continue through the morning with a high of only 82 today. We could see more showers late tonight. It'll warm up for the weekend with highs around 90. And right now, we're at 68 degrees under mostly cloudy skies at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
The race to replace. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
The race to replace. The race to replace Chris Stewart. Chris Stewart, representative, of course, longtime representatives serving Utah back in Washington, D.C. Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega. There will be several debates that will be, very visible for us to look and see the difference between the candidates.
Right.
So
usually when you get into a House race like this, or usually when you're dealing with House races, right, it's every 2 years and there are 4 of them going on. This is an interesting one because there's only one going on because of the circumstances that led us to it. So there are more eyeballs that theoretically will be in on this, even though it's still only a certain segment of the state that gets to vote in that particular election.
You're involved in political circles and in campaigns. What do you feel is, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, what do you feel is the #1 issue for Utah that voters want to hear candidates talking about and addressing?
That's a tough one to say right now in Utah specifically. Nationwide, I think the economy is going to end up being a really big one because we've had, and specifically inflation is going to be like, what are the costs, the cost of living for everyday Americans into this race? I don't know if that's necessarily the #1 issue, but I think voters in the 2nd District are looking at who do we send to represent us in Washington, D.C. So it does translate really well to national type issues. And I think it's sort of, hey, just this what the Republican voters, at least in that primary, how do we put the brakes on the Biden administration? And how do we get inflation back under control, cost of living down? And I think to some extent, sort of that message of pushing back against a woke agenda and taking everyone socially down a path that not all Americans are comfortable with.
Celeste Malloy is a candidate in the 2nd Congressional District. Good morning, Celeste. Once again, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
I think Marty spelled out that the economy is the biggest issue. I in my mind, it's water, and not on a day when we are getting so much rain and so much rain all at once.
It's a different kind of water issue today.
But long term, I think Utahns are it's on our minds. Like, what happens if we have, a continued drought? What are you hearing from voters as you're on your campaign trail? Are they concerned about that like I am, or is that not an issue in their minds?
No, I think you're both right. People want to talk about the economy. They want to talk about government spending. They want to talk about inflation, and everybody wants to talk about water. But water is not disconnected from the economy. Utah can't grow if we don't have good water policy, and everybody knows that our most limiting factor to growth is going to be water. So I don't think we talk about them separately, but they're going to affect the economy.
Is there a fix that you have or a plan that you have to deal with our drought and make sure, like, for example, the Great Salt Lake doesn't dwindle again?
That's a great question, and it's one I answer a lot, and I've been very consistent in my answer. That water policy and water law are state law, and the federal government has a role to play in supporting the state, but I want to be really careful to never get out ahead of the state on water policy. And I've been working on these issues for years. I have good relationships with the state water people, and I do think there's a lot that can be done to address the Great Salt Lake, to address the Colorado River, even to address, the aquifers around the state that are dropping. But it's always got to be the state leading on water. And then once the state has a plan and says this is what we want to do, then there's a role for the federal delegation to assist in that plan with federal programming or federal dollars or cutting through, bureaucratic red tape at the federal level. But it should always be the state leading on what our plan with water is.
It feels like that's a lot of what our federal delegation has to spend time doing at this point, is essentially saying Utah can handle a lot of its own issues if the federal government will stay out of our way. Or, hey, we can handle this, but when it comes to funding, this is what we need to do. We need the federal government generally to be less involved in what we're doing in Utah. Maybe that's not the case in other states. As you talk to voters, as you're out on the campaign trail, do you get a sense that that's what they want from a representative, just to say your role is to go back and fight against Washington interfering with what's going well here in Utah?
Well, I probably lead them on that question because that's what I think the role is. And so I usually talk about government overreach and how the federal government is just way too involved in Utahns' day-to-day lives. And there are a lot of alphabet soup agencies out there, but a large part of it is that the majority of the land in our district and in our county or in our state are managed by the federal government. And so, the things that would traditionally fall completely within the realm of local governments have a federal nexus here. We can't upgrade power lines. We can't maintain roads without dealing with federal agencies. So, yes, that is what people want to talk to me about on the campaign trail, but it's also what I lead with. So I don't know if that's what they would be talking about if I wasn't leading with it.
And Celeste, one of the areas where the federal government, I think, does overlap into Utah, where people are comfortable or even grateful for that association, is on the military side. We're a very military supporting state. We have Hill Air Force Base. Your current boss and the person you're running to replace has been a very big champion for Utah when it comes to military spending coming to our state, our ability to support the aerospace and defense industries generally. What's your message to voters in how you'll either continue or change that legacy? What do you want voters to know about how you'll deal with that relationship?
I'm never going to have the background that Chris Stewart has. He served in the military. I have not, even though I come from a very pro-military family and have brothers who've served. But I've said as soon as I declared that I wanted to run, that I want to be on two committees, House Natural Resources and House Armed Services. And the armed services piece is because it's such an important thing in this state. We do have important military installations, and I think everybody knows about the military installations, but sometimes people forget about the industry we have that's in Utah because of those military installations. So being on armed services makes it's so that Utah has a representative who can keep an eye on those issues and watch out for our military installations and make sure that the related industry is also represented.
Celeste Malloy on the line with us right now. She's running a special election for the 2nd Congressional District, also on for the Republican nomination. Also on that ballot, the primary ballot, which Republicans will cast on September 5th, is Becky Edwards and Bruce Huff as well. Okay, so if you get that appointment to the Armed Services Committee, Celeste, what would be your stance on continued funding to Ukraine for the war there?
I've been pretty consistent on this answer as well. I think it was important when Russia invaded its neighbor that the rest of the world stood up and said that was unacceptable. Now we need to have a plan on Ukraine, and we don't. And we need to know where all of the dollars and equipment we've sent to Ukraine have gone, and we don't have that either. So before we do anything else for Ukraine, we need an accounting. And then once we have an accounting, then we can decide whether to send any more money. But right now, I would be opposed to sending anything to Ukraine until they can tell us what they've done with what we already have, and until we can define what success looks like in this mission. We have some examples in our history of operations we've gotten into, and we didn't have a measuring stick for saying when we were done. And I think we need to learn from that and not make the same mistake here.
So you would stand in the way against future funding until you saw some sort of an audit or something from Ukraine? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, something to say this is what we've done with the dollars you've sent. I mean, I've heard of our money being used to fund their pension fund. That isn't what we're sending them dollars for. I think we need to know where the dollars have gone before we send them anymore.
And I think having a strategy is something that makes a lot of sense, right? You start sending essentially what I hear you saying is, hey, this is the position we're in as far as Russia invading Ukraine. And yes, we're willing to help. Now there's got to be some accountability for how we're spending that money. And I imagine that does that line up, you think, with what you're hearing from the voters you're talking to, that, hey, we want to be helpful, we want to be on the side of truth and justice, but we want to have an exit strategy, and we don't want to just sign a blank check?
It lines up fairly well. I also talk to a lot of people who just think we should be done in Ukraine, and I'm not ready to take that hard of a line. I think we need answers and we need a plan, but voters do seem to be really nervous about us continuing to send money.
Celeste Malloy, candidate in the 2nd Congressional District. Are you going to be participating in all the debates, Celeste?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll watch for those. I think the first one is this week, if I'm not mistaken. They're coming up quickly, and as the election is as well, the primary election, September 5th. It looks like the first debate this Friday at the Farmington City building. I think it's Farmington City Hall. And then there's another debate Saturday in Washington County. So we will be keeping close eyes on those debates, letting you know at KSLNewsRadio.com and also our KSL News Radio Facebook page where you can catch those debates. Yeah. Straight ahead, Marty's been doing his homework. You actually took on a homework assignment all of your own. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an insight as to what we're talking about next and who you've invited to join us?
Sure. There's this interesting transformation in the works when it comes to Pell Grants and funding what types of education they can fund. And right now they can fund what you think of as like a degree seeking, right? Going to college to get an associate's or a bachelor's degree. Pell Grants are done based on your financial need, but the marketplace is changing, and in some businesses, they care a little bit less. Our state cares a little bit less about whether or not you have the bachelor's degree, and instead, do you have the skills to do the job? So there's a transformation in the works, potentially, to change that. You could use those Pell Grant funds to go fund certificates and job skills that could get you there quicker. So Congressman Burgess Owens, signed on to a letter to congressional leadership. Actually, he's one of 3 members of the House who did that from our federal delegation to legislative or to congressional leadership to say, hey, this is a great change that we need to consider making. And that process is, in the works to make that change so that we can take money that we have sort of dedicated to help people get educated to where they can get jobs, and now saying, maybe it's not just those degrees. Maybe it's also skills that can stack up to be degrees and work them in that direction so they can get to where they have some income and can continue working on their education.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much for teeing us up for Congressman Burgess Owens' phone call in 3 minutes.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hey, stay right here for more of Dave and Dujanovic.
And tomorrow morning, come back here for news, traffic updates, and reliable weather.
Join us to have a listen. Tim and Amanda.
Your morning companions for news.
Before you head to work, before you hit the gym,
keep going, that's it.
Before you make your way home,
bye.
Get a quick check on traffic and weather.
PD on the scene at 8 South and West Temple.
Highway 89 also really backed up.
Listen every 10 minutes on the 9s, in your car at 102.7 FM, or tell Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
It takes a lot of patience to be an investor these days. Record high inflation, layoffs, record high debt leading to debt ceiling talks. But in the meantime, the market is looking ahead, reacting to what could happen next. You don't have to do this alone. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, telling you to take advantage of the high interest rates while they're here. Regardless of what's going on in the world, there are winners and there are losers when it comes to what you put your money into now. Because of the high interest rates, you may qualify for an upfront bonus of up to 25% just for opening an account and guaranteed growth of up to 10% for your retirement income. This exists because of the high interest rates. Don't leave your money sitting in the bank earning nothing, or leave that 401k constantly fluctuating. Roll it over and open an account with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Troy, do you believe in fortune tellers?
Not really. Why?
Camping's been so epic this year, I need to know if we'll get extra summer.
Is that the deal with the black message pool ball?
All signs point to yes.
Well, summer's always longer when you've got an RV.
Is that true? The ball says yes.
People in RVs can camp all through fall, and we want everyone to experience that. So right now, Bish's RV is throwing a summer forever sale. Get low monthly payments starting under $149 per month on approved credit.
Okay, that's crazy low, no?
Ball says decidedly so.
We're also hooking people up with 90 days of all play, no pay OAC?
Definitely. Plus, all remaining new 2022s are priced to move with no single reasonable offer refused.
And trades are worth like more than ever, right?
No doubt in sight.
This thing is never wrong. Paranormal pool ball. Am I handsome? Better not tell you. Wait.
Extend your season for summer memories during the Summer Forever sale at Bish's RV in North Salt Lake and American Fork. Previously Stewart's RV. Bish's RV, where memories begin.
Based on 10% down, 9.24% APR for 180 months. Not all buyers will qualify. See dealer for details.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, Utah had some huge rainfall totals yesterday. Our August storms aren't quite done yet. Second, former President Trump due in court in Washington today for arraignment on charges related to the January 6th Capitol riot. And third, the governor of Texas facing new criticism after bodies were found in the Rio Grande near the buoys the state has put there. Right now, 68 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Marty Carpenter today for Dave Noriega. And thankfully, you caught this. I think this is a fascinating story regarding Pell Grants and expanding their use to certificate programs that can help people kind of get into areas and fields where they, can use that Pell Grant to help pay for their education. You also invited Congressman Burgess Owens to join the conversation because he is helping to pitch this plan. Summarize it for us so, everybody could follow along at home as to what this idea entails.
Great. So let's start with the fundamentals.
Okay.
A Pell Grant. You have you don't make a lot of enough money to where you're most likely to be able to pay for your student for your education, and so the government essentially gives this financial aid. It's a grant to you to go use this money to go seek a degree, right? To go get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. But Pell Grants are available only to students pursuing those types of degrees, and the marketplace is shifting a little bit. We've seen this with states, Utah being one of them, Maryland being another, where we take all these state jobs that used to say bachelor degree required, and now they're saying you actually don't really probably need a bachelor's degree to do this job, but you need to have certain skills to be able to do this. More and more businesses looking at it saying, hey, a bachelor's degree is a wonderful thing, and there's value and virtue in that. But when you show up here, I actually need you to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And if you can do that, that's great. I want to make sure that you can do that so we can get these things done. So with the limitations on it right now, it means that students who are seeking short-term training programs, those that are easily accessible online, for example, are not eligible for Pell Grants. These are like, 16, 20-week type courses where you can say, you know what, I got a fundamental certification in cybersecurity, and there's a huge demand for cybersecurity workers. I don't have 4 years to go get a degree. Maybe I will ultimately, but right now, if I can take this course, I can get started in something. It checks a box for the business. They get the basic skills they need, put someone in place where they're now working and earning money, and can then go on and pursue further education if they want. So it's switching it to say, hey, it's been limited to just these traditional routes. Now we're going to broaden it. And the reason that we have Congressman Burgess Owens with us is because he serves as the chair of the Higher Education and Workforce Development Subcommittee. He, along with Congressman Blake Moore and Congressman John Curtis, signed on to this letter to congressional leadership urging this change. And Congressman Owens, thanks so much for taking some time from your busy sort of August recess, but not really recess schedule to be with us this morning.
Thank you, Marty and Debbie, and that was a very, very good summary. So I appreciate you kind of giving me that little lift off there. Now, this just so I can kind of continue that part of the conversation. It really is about choice. I think we've come to a point where, and maybe COVID would kind of pull the curtain back, where people begin to wonder, what's my best return on investment? How can I get into my career versus spending years and years finding myself? And also the fact that we have $1.7 trillion of student debt that's piled up over the decades, and we're realizing that we have to change this around a little bit. So the short-term Pell says very simply this. We don't all have to go to a 4-year college or 6-year college. We can find things early in our life that we want to just pursue. We want to get there. We get certification. We can make sure we're competent in those particular areas. It could be through, and by the way, the short-term Pels are now for not only community colleges, but for vocational schools, for profit, and for online. That's the big issue right now, online education. Anywhere that people can find their way to getting that competency they need and to finding the area of expertise we want to get into, we should be able to support that. And that's been a change. I'm excited about it. And again, it's all about choice. And we should not allow for the old way of traditional 4 to 6 year kind of be the monopoly of the only way that we can find our success. And this is one way of getting there.
Congressman, I like the out-of-the-box approach on this. I think it gives families and individuals another route to get that certification, and then perhaps if they get that certification and get into that first job, perhaps the employer will pick up if they decided to pursue a 4-year degree or go on and pursue like a master's. The employers oftentimes will pick up a significant chunk of that degree, and so maybe there's a shift there where you can get your foot in the door because you have that certification. That certification is paid for through a Pell Grant. It really does. It's intriguing. Honestly, this is really an intriguing approach. And those Pell Grants don't have to be paid back, correct?
That's correct. It actually it's designed for lower income, for veterans. And it's the government's way of kind of supporting the process. You just nailed something I want to just highlight, though, Debbie, and that is we've come to a point where we now recognize there's such a lack of workforce. No matter what industry you go to, you find they're desperate to find people who want to come to work that are capable of doing the job. So they're now actually bypassing, in many cases, the traditional way of waiting for people to come out of college. They're trying to get now into exposing younger people in 9th, 10th grade to what the industry might be and helping them to navigate that process. So when they come out of high school, or maybe the first year out of high school, they can actually begin their jobs, make income without all this particular debt. So that connection is beginning to find itself also. And it all comes down to innovation by those we now need to know there's a niche we need to fill, and disrupting a system in which we can no longer go back to thinking the old way of doing this thing for decades doesn't work anymore. We need to find a way to let people get to where they want to get to work without the debt and go and build their dreams. And this is a good way of getting it done.
And Congressman, you're known as a fiscal conservative, so I'm sure that you're thinking about the other side of the coin here, which is if you start handing out money for certificate programs, you want to make sure there's some quality control on that. So what steps are you taking, or what steps do you think we should take to make sure that we are not just suddenly sprouting up a new industry where people are starting 20-week, 25-week courses to get money and not really translate that into skills and core competencies?
Well, what's interesting is we're now opening up Pell to industries that already have to they have to have metrics of quality, of success, for-profit, vocational, technical schools. In order to get any type of support, they have to show that things are working. Unlike it is with traditional colleges. We get into traditional college. What happened? These colleges are getting paid from the very beginning. They get their money, and then it's up to the student and the taxpayer to make sure they succeed. When you get into these other industries where they truly have to show themselves as a successful entity to survive, then that's already kind of baked in. I think the key is we need to make sure that it's a level playing field across the board, and no matter which way a student wants to go, no matter at what point they want to come into the industry, it could be 22, it could be 32, whenever they want to come in, that there's a level playing field and the quality is the same across the board. So if there's a percentage of success that has to be happening, a percentage of return on investment once a student gets out of school, and how can they repay those loans, the degrees that they have to make sure that they get, so that it's not a degree that's worth nothing, worth the paper that they're printed on. Those are things of quality and success that has to be fit into this process here, and it's already happening in many of the industries that are trying to become part of this. Online is another aspect of this, by the way, guys. To be able to get online now that COVID's happened, realize there's so much innovative processes happening out there with so many different ways of doing this, and online should be another part of how people can educate themselves, still have a job, still raise their kids, and yet upskill themselves so they can go ahead and pursue the dreams they want to pursue.
Congressman, we have such short time, but in 30 seconds, maybe you can kind of give me, paint the picture for me about kind of what certificate programs that you would want to see Pell Grants be able to cover if somebody qualifies for them. Is it like?
I would say anything which is needed and necessary in the industries. It could be anything through the vocational schools. It could be trucking. It could be cosmetology. It could be dentistry assistants. There are so many avenues of employment and dreams out there. We have to just make sure that as long as it's a need by our society, we should be able to find a way for folks to get their degrees, go out there and fill those niches, and it's a win-win for everybody, for our society, for those that are trying to get their dreams accomplished, and for the institutions that's providing value. They should also be succeeding. If they're not, they need to find something else to do, no matter what industry what niche they might be part of. If they're not getting out good, successful product, our kids, then we should not be supporting those types of institutions.
Congressman Burgess Owens of Utah's 4th District serves as chair of the Higher Education and Workforce Development Subcommittee. Congressman, thanks so much for giving us some insight on your work on this issue.
Yeah, that's intriguing. I hope we got to make sure he keeps us posted on how this goes. I think there are a lot of families who could benefit from this plan and this idea. Putting aside the idea that you're going to go to college for 4 years and have student loan debt, and instead be eligible for a Pell Grant to pay for a certificate program.
And it's not necessarily even an either-or thing. It's not that you won't go to a 4-year degree. It's just, hey, if I get these skills, I can start working. And now instead of needing more government help through a Pell Grant, maybe I can pay, or my employer will help pay for me to go get that associate's degree, to go get that bachelor's degree. It just gets you into a productive state more quickly by giving you exactly what you need to start.
Straight ahead, we're going to talk about this homeless situation in city parks, where homeless encampments are popping up in Liberty Park. There's also some in Fairmont Park, maybe some other parks. And we're going to ask city leaders, like, what do you plan to do about it?
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. More rain coming to northern Utah, which got 2 months' worth just yesterday. Was enough water to turn the baseball diamond at Davis Technical College into a lake. That's Christine Cruz from the National Weather Service, who says this monsoon surge will likely end this afternoon. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. American students greeted Pope Francis on the second day of his 5-day trip to Portugal to celebrate World Youth Day. The Pope's sermon spoke of Jesus' parable of the pearl of great price.
Una de las parábolas de Jesús dice que el que encuentra la perla de gran valor.
And the Pope urged the students to seek it with intelligence and diligence. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down just 5 points or so. The NASDAQ is up just a bit, 17 points on the day right now. And our KSL weather is coming up next. It looks like we're going to see a little more rain, but not through the entire day. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
on KSL News Radio.
Everything's changing so fast these days, and that's a great thing. Back in my day, we were lucky if we could get one video to load on a desktop computer, but now there's the Xfinity 10G network. That means the fastest internet with faster speeds rolling out all the time, and internet that can power a house full of devices with ultra-low lag. So one person streams a movie from their room, another can play video games in the basement, while another TikToks in the kitchen. It's the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Through September 21st, new customers can get 1.2 gigabit internet with unlimited internet data and Wi-Fi equipment included. It's all just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data at regular rates. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Hey, summer's here, and it's only getting hotter. Get 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for a year on a new day and night air conditioning system.
Don't put it off. Summer is here, and it's hot. Have a new day and night air conditioner and furnace system installed with 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments for 12 months. Enjoy savings and a cool, comfortable home for a full year before you even have to make a payment. Go to dayandnightcomfort.com for a day and night elite dealer near you. The difference is day and night.
Here's Jake Harwood. Hi, I'm Jake. I'm a farmer and I grow corn.
Jake, I can taste your fresh, locally grown corn already.
We pick and deliver it fresh throughout the day to our green roadside stands all over Utah County.
That'd be Lehigh, American Fork, Pleasant Grove, Orem, Provo, Springville, Spanish Fork, and Payson.
Salt Lake County,
Murray, Draper, and Sandy.
Sanpete and Juab,
Mount Pleasant, Ephraim, Nephi, and Delta.
And let's not forget Heber and Tooele.
Wouldn't think of it. Check them all at harwardfarms.com.
Fresh from our family's farm to your family's dinner table.
Harward Farms.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, traffic is still a bit slow. Southbound I-15 between 90th South and Sandy and 114th South and Draper. That's due to the right lane and shoulder still blocked in Draper. It's from an earlier crash. All the vehicles are gone, but crews are still trying to clean up a little bit of diesel that spilled from that accident. And the connecting ramp from eastbound I-80 from the airport to go southbound I-215 remains closed due to a jackknife semi. There's also several other accidents around the Wasatch Front, but none of them are causing problems. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, rain showers continuing through the morning with a high of only 82 today. We could see more showers late tonight. It'll warm up for the weekend with highs around 90. And right now we're at 70 degrees with cloudy skies at KSL News Radio 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Complaints are starting to bubble up that homeless encampments are
everywhere.
Yeah, taking over some of the city parks. I was looking for the right word. And I saw this. I was in a Sugar House the other day, and I drove by Fairmont Park. Oh, where's that? About 1300, 12th East, and it's about 2200 West. And there was a lot of tents and shopping carts. And I thought, we as a community and as a state have struggled to address this issue to where we can really kind of wrap our arms around it, make sure people who are experiencing homelessness have all the resources that they need. And we're now seeing it in Liberty Park, where residents have gone to city leaders and asked, what are you going to do about this? And I've been covering homeless issues in this valley since 1990 when I moved here. And there's not an easy fix. Marty Carpenter in Today for Dave Noriega. You've lived here almost your whole life, right? I mean, except for the couple of years you were in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
and Kansas,
yeah, and Kansas,
yeah,
okay,
Topeka, Kansas, the geographic center point of the country.
I like parts of Kansas. What's your initial reaction to this?
So I have some familiarity with this issue, but it's a bit dated because I used to be the communication director at the Salt Lake Chamber in the late 20-aughts and into the early 20-teens. And the Downtown Alliance worked on this a great deal, one of our sister partner organizations at the Chamber at the time. And they would always talk about, hey, we want to help the homeless, but panhandling was an issue they dealt with a lot. And I guess where I've settled, or at least where I am in my mind on this issue, is I think it's tricky when you just label everyone as homeless, because there are probably some subdivisions within a group of people who do not have housing. And there are probably, you tell me, because you know this issue better than I am, but I think logically it would break down that there are some people who, through bad circumstances, are homeless and would love nothing more than to get back on their feet and support themselves, and they need help transitioning back to that. And then there are probably people who are less interested in having that kind of help, and some people who just plain old, through drug addictions or mental issues or whatever, just want to be homeless, and no matter what you do for them, they will always find a way to kind of end up there. And so I just wonder if the difficulty is you try to solve an issue for a whole group of homeless people when within that there are people who have a different reason for being there.
And I want to, you hit it on the head. I mean,
maybe I'm way off on that, but you're the expert on it, more of an expert than I am.
And Wendy Garvin, Executive Director of Unsheltered Utah, is also on the line with us. And I think the other issue that we have at work here, Wendy, is when the main shelter, Rio Grande, was shut down just, west of kind of downtown, right by the Gateway, or just by the Gateway Mall there. Then they went to the resource center model, and we've got a couple of resource centers in Salt Lake. We've got one in South Salt Lake, and we have the one, of course, that's been there for years down in Midvale. But you look at the total number of beds, and there are 1,000 beds in the valley. There may be more, because I know there are some nonprofits that step in as well into this equation from time to time. But the last count was of number of people experiencing homelessness was like 3,700. So the people to bed ratio doesn't come anywhere near what we might need on a given night. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I know you know the math. You deal with this all day long, every day.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating because the mayor of Salt Lake City stepped up a couple days ago and said, well, the solution in Liberty Park is we will increase policing. And we have Chief Mike Brown on record saying that policing does not help with homelessness because the police don't have the resources to house people. And then 3 weeks ago, when addressing the Gateway about their issues with homelessness, Mayor Mendenhall said that policing is not the answer, and that what people need are, and let me read her quote, they need supportive services that are there every single day they wake up, and right now those don't exist. Okay, so they don't exist because Mayor Mendenhall blocked the creation of a new shelter in the ballpark area just about 2 years ago and created a moratorium on new shelters in the area. And So she's both saying, we're going to give you a solution that we know doesn't work, and we're also going to blame this on a lack of solutions that we blocked in the past. So I really have to ask myself, who is responsible here for some of these solutions? And I think that Marty was really on point when he said there is a wide variety of subpopulations in the unsheltered community, but even those with terrible mental illness or significant drug addictions often still want housing, and they're willing to make life changes in order to get that. But the housing doesn't exist, the shelters don't exist, the case management doesn't exist, and they can't do it on their own because of those disabilities or barriers. And so they just end up really stuck out on the streets in a tent, getting pushed around from place to place.
And this has been an ongoing issue. Like I've covered these stories since, I would have said it before, 1990. And so I'm going on my 33rd year as a journalist, living in the Salt Lake Valley, and been with people experiencing homelessness on numerous occasions. What's going on in Liberty Park, what's going on in Fairmont Park, what is going on, that doesn't even account for what's going along the Jordan River Parkway, where many people live in the bushes there in tents along the Jordan River Parkway. I mean, you have almost 4,000 in a count, between 3,500 and 4,000 people, and I'm sure that's it's not quite where it is at. I'm sure there's more than that because you can't get to everybody in one night, Wendy. So what is Unsheltered Utah's solution? And I mean, we can only get to these solutions in like 2 minutes. So give me. I'm sorry, but the nutshell. I mean, we can talk about this all day long. But what do you think is a good solution for what is going on?
Well, the immediate solutions need to be short-term. So sanctioned camping is one solution that we support. Additional shelters is another solution that should help. But again, those are short-term solutions. Long-term, we have to fund housing, because until there's someplace for folks to go, they just move into the shelters or into the camps, and then they get stuck there. So we need some effective short-term solutions that move people through the shelter system and into that permanent supportive housing. And right now, we simply, on any given day in the month, we have maybe 3 or 4 permanent supportive housing solutions available for the thousands and thousands of people who are applying.
Well, it's not going away. In fact, I went back to a 2015 Washington Post article where they said we had kind of solved homelessness back then by taking a number of steps and finding housing, and they placed the number back then at 600 people in the head count of those experiencing homelessness. Well, if that was an accurate number, and now we're at 3,700, the problem has just gotten more pronounced. Wendy Garvin, I know you're just a phone call away. I know this is just the beginning of many conversations to come. She's the executive director of Unsheltered Utah. Always appreciate the work that Unsheltered Utah does. We're not done with this conversation. In a moment, we're going to talk to City Hall about it.
It's an interesting issue because it's always ongoing. And in some regards, I wonder to what extent success also breeds more of the problem, right? Once you've solved it, does that attract more people to the area that might need those resources? And then suddenly we're overwhelmed with it again. I don't know the answer to that, but it seems like that's at least a possibility.
Wendy mentioned one of the solutions that Unsheltered Utah is pitching is sanctioned camping. Now, what ends up happening in these situations is when camping is not sanctioned on city streets, in city parks, which it is not, what happens is they end up getting, their tents pushed. It's just all kinds of chaos because their tents get pushed out and then they got to roll. But then they end up just moving to another area, and it becomes a kind of a game of cat and mouse, for lack of a better way to put it. So let's ask our next guest if sanctioned camping is being considered at City Hall.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Did you know Utah has just one all-new station in the morning?
It's this one, weekday mornings between 5 and 9.
Start your days with us. We're Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Your morning companions for news.
Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago? You looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Ah, the joy of taxes. It could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Mike Stevens and the team at Capital Wealth Advisors can help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up your tax strategy session with Mike Stevens and Capital Wealth Advisors now. Call 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
The extracurricular activities, the traffic, the nightly homework, the traffic, the finding time to eat dinner together as a family, the traffic. Back to school can be stressful. Thanks to Ziploc, meal prep doesn't have to be. New Ziploc bags with Stay Open design have a patented stand-up bottom that helps keep the bag upright and a top crease that folds and holds for easy filling, unlocking a second set of hands in the kitchen. If only it unlocked a second set of lanes. New Ziploc brand freezer and storage bags with Stay Open design from S.C. Johnson, a family company.
Hey guys, are you over 30? Let's talk about testosterone and performance. Your testosterone can decline at an average of 1 to 2% a year after you turn 30. And Revive Men's Health have been experts at treating men with low testosterone and ED since 2011. We're the clinic guys come to when their current treatment isn't working. They have a complicated medical condition, or they're just not happy with their performance. We love what we do and the patients we care for. You can ask our patients. We did, and we have a 99% patient satisfaction rate this year. Our patients even tell us we're more affordable than their insurance deductibles and copays. Let's get to the bottom of your issues and fix them. That's what we do, and we do it really well. Book your T-check and exam today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or send us a private message at revivemenshealth.com.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language? In as little as 3 weeks, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, we got 2 months worth of rain in Utah just yesterday. The monsoon surge will be drying out later today. Second, the little kitten named Tater Tot has died. She drew attention around the world on social media. And third, thousands of young Catholics from all over the world are greeting Pope Francis on his trip to Portugal. Right now, 70 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
I'm not so sure that the residents who are concerned about the growing number of homeless encampments in our city parks would be on board with the idea that was just pitched from Unsheltered Utah of sanctioned camping. Residents at Liberty Park meeting yesterday with politicians at City Hall in Salt Lake City to discuss, what are you going to do about the camping? I mean, there's camp. I haven't seen the tents, but apparently they're camping even in the bike lanes at Liberty Park. I saw what I thought was a pretty widespread encampment when I drove by Fairmont Park in Sugar House last week. Marty Carpenter in today for Dave Noriega. And as we were discussing, this has been a decades and decades long issue. And remember back in the day, it was Pioneer Park down the street here in downtown Salt Lake where you'd see a number of people experiencing homelessness.
And then they put cameras up there. And I think the first wave was they moved around the library and then the police department got there. And then I don't know, there's sort of a migration of these individuals depending on where our police presence is. And and where they can go find space.
We don't have enough time on the show to go through the timeline of what's happened. We're
not going to solve homelessness today.
No, we're not going to. But I
That's
can tell you, back in the 90s, there was like a train caboose or a train engine, like legit, huge, that was in Pioneer Park. And back in the 90s, I think it was Mayor Didi Cordini. I think it was under her administration. It may have been before her time, but they had that removed because people were camping inside that caboose. And then there was the downtown shelter. They finally decided to close that down permanently right by Gateway Mall, and then they put these resource centers in. And I'm not sure that solution. There's the one in Midvale. There's one in South Salt Lake. There's a couple in Salt Lake City. I'm not sure that solution that has been a solution to this kind of growing issue that we have now. We have 3,700 people experiencing homelessness at last count, and that last count was at the end of June. Andrew Johnston, Director of Homeless Policy and Outreach in the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
One of the pitches that Unsheltered Utah was making is sanctioned camping in some areas. Has there been any discussion of actually making camping, overnight camping in our city parks legal?
Well, sanctioned camping is a really broad idea that's implemented very differently across the country. What we've looked at nationwide is places that have done it in a really organized and careful way. So it looks a lot more like an open-air resource center where there's a defined perimeter like fencing or walls, one place to come in and out for intake and discharge, rules, professional staff, security, all the services on site. So it's not just setting up a bunch of tents in a field and say, it's fine, just go at it. That hasn't worked well everywhere we've looked at. So we try not to say sanctioned camping, but generally people sort of respond to that term a lot.
So, Andrew, we just spoke with Wendy Garvin from Unsheltered Utah. She had sort of some her perspective on what has been done or what hasn't been done from the city side, essentially saying, hey, solutions that have been in place have been blocked. Bigger shelter, there's a moratorium on that to solve this issue. I'm wondering, I think in fairness, let's give the city the side to share its perspective. Help us understand what is being done. If you could give us sort of paint with the broad brush, give us some of the highlights of what is being done to address the homeless issue from the city's perspective.
So homelessness is a lot of different people in different circumstances, but the foundational piece of it is housing. As the housing market gets more expensive, we're going to see more of this overall. We see that nationwide. So the first thing as a city is addressing housing in the city, but we need every city, every county in the state to do likewise so we have more deeply affordable housing and permanent supportive housing. We have about 400 units we've funded with the state this year, and we need to do more of that as a city. But in the interim, while the housing gets ramped up and keeps building, we've got to have other solutions, even temporarily. So our current resource centers are full, generally speaking. So we are working with the state and some city money to try and find other options like safe outdoor spaces or outdoor resource centers where we could give more emergency services and shelter for folks in the short term. And then obviously this winter, the county mayors came forward with their plan for overflow needs starting in October. That'll be October to April to do really short-term stuff we need done. And then the biggest piece, again, that's not being talked about probably nearly enough is that behavioral health, substance use treatment, mental health treatment, disability services, those are county and state services. And we're working with the county and state trying to expand access there as quickly as we can because a lot of folks need those services to make housing work.
Andrew Johnston, Director of Homeless Policy and Outreach in the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office, having him involved in this discussion. Now, a number of residents are concerned about the growing number of encampments at Liberty Park. I know I saw an encampment at Fairmont Park as well. I know there's encampments along the Jordan River. I remember it was years ago, Andrew, that I traveled to Portland and Seattle, which kind of preceded us in this huge issue of homelessness and where to place people. And we visited many tiny home villages, and we did visit those encampments that you spoke of, and I'm visualizing them now. And we spoke to the residents there who live in those spaces. And I was surprised actually at how organized they were and what the expectations were of those who live there, and they're certainly not without controversy for some of the nearby residents and neighborhoods. But I came back and actually talked to the city about this, and there wasn't any interest at the time in doing that kind of thing. And now here we are so many years later, and now it seems like we don't have many other choices but to look at encampments and look at these concepts of these tiny home villages where they put 30 or 40 tiny homes in one lot. Like, for example, an old home gets torn down and they are able to put a number of people living individually in these tiny homes. And I actually thought that's very empowering for these people. But what do you feel, why has the city been kind of this far behind in this issue?
Well, I think you're talking going back even decades, right?
Yeah.
Not to age anybody, but
no, I know. I'm 56. I don't mind you calling me old. That's fine. Yeah, it's been going on a long time.
I think everybody's noticed that land prices and housing prices have skyrocketed, right? For many, many years, we enjoyed pretty modest housing prices here, and that really helped a lot. And other places you've mentioned, West Coast, particularly the East Coast, had not had that. So they've had these dilemmas for years and years and years. And so, yeah, they've had to experience this and try and fail at some things and try some good things. We're there now because of land prices and housing prices and just continual disinvestment in some underlying resources like social services and different types of housing. So we don't have a lot of the missing middle housing. We don't have the things you talked about with tiny home villages. So as a city, and Mayor Mendenhall is trying to try some things with the tiny home village, the other side village here in Salt Lake City, looking at some safe outdoor space options. The safe outdoor space options are not solutions, though. We have to be clear about that.
Right.
These are essentially emergency shelter things to get us to the housing, but the housing is the big thing we have to get moving and do it every year going forward. It can't do kind of fits and spurts of these things.
And there is a component, and Andrew, we're going to let you go, so we're starting to tick out of time here. There is a component here in Salt Lake City that we recognize that like places like Seattle and Portland don't have the severe winters. And so sanctioning outdoor encampments during the winter becomes very, very tricky. Andrew Johnston, Director of Homeless Policy and Outreach for the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. I just want to say something here, Marty, is I have felt in all of the years that I've covered homelessness is that I'm going to give something back to City Hall here, that it has been left on their doorstep here in Salt Lake City to deal with. Now, we know we have the Resource Center in Midvale, and South Salt Lake has the Resource Center there. South Salt Lake also has the jail as well, and so they have a lot on their plates there. But it's so often we look to Salt Lake City Hall, we look to our east here and go like, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? And this needs to be a holistic approach.
And holistic's an interesting point to make because we've talked about how do you take people who don't have housing and get them housing. But the next step in that sequence and the step after that are just as important. How do you get them to where they are on their own 2 feet, where they can earn money and get themselves into a more permanent situation? That's how you solve the problem. It has to be what comes after.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Members of the Utah National Guard rescued 4 lost hikers who were missing on the Strawberry River. Guard members were helping other officials with that search because of rough rainstorm conditions in Wasatch County. Crews found 3 kids under the age of 14, along with a 50-year-old adult. They hoisted up the lost hikers using a Black Hawk helicopter, and they're now safe with their families, all in good condition. Fire broke out late last night in West Valley City. It engulfed 3 semi-trucks.
This is a good example of just training getting put into action.
Fire Battalion Chief Bob Silverthorne says the trucks were right next to a building about 2020 south and 5200 west, but they were able to keep the flames from spreading to the building. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The FBI says its agents, working with local and state police, have rescued more than 50 sex trafficking victims during a child exploitation takedown last month. ABC's Jim Ryan reports on Operation Cross Country.
It's estimated that hundreds of thousands of children are trafficked worldwide every year, about 5% in this country. The FBI says that in the 13th year of Operation Cross Country, 59 victims of child trafficking and 59 missing children were discovered. and nearly 200 suspects were identified or arrested.
That's ABC's Jim Ryan. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average now up 42 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up 52 right now. KSL weather. The rain is going to taper off. That's next. KSL News 9/11:01.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Everybody knows that exterior remodeling salespeople are all about the high-pressure sell. Am I right? Windows, siding, gutters, those suckers are going to twist your arm and get you to buy, or they won't leave your house at night. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I want you to know we don't have high-pressure cells. In fact, we don't even have salespeople. Nope, we have estimators. That's a huge difference. Estimators are trained to look at the entire scope of the project, to see and know if there are any problems, like rotten wood, wood-borne insects, or construction issues specific to your house or your neighbors. Salespeople are more concerned about playing those silly price games. Buy one, get one free, sign today and get 40% off, as if they didn't just jack the price up to give you a fake discount. RGS Exteriors estimators are going to give you a great quote. No games, no tricks, no nonsense. Call RGS Exteriors to quote your exterior project. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
I guess it's human nature, Amanda, that no matter how much money we have in our savings account, it never seems like it's enough. And if you find yourself in that mode right now, let us direct you over to our friends at UCCU. They are wanting to help you supercharge your savings.
UCCU is offering high-rate savings options with yields up to 5.5%. All you do is go to uccu.com and select a high-rate savings option to do just what you said, supercharge your savings.
You're going to get a much bigger return on your savings right now. It's a savings certificate, which means you make one deposit up front and your money grows over a fixed period of time. So you can have that grow over 5 years, but UCCU has created some very short-term savings certificates with high yields, short like 6 months, 9 months, or a year.
So you decide how long do you want to put that money. You deposit money, a one-time only deposit, and then you let it stay in. The longer it stays in there, the higher the interest rate you earn.
And if you need immediate access to your money, UCCU's Money Market will give you a high yield and anytime access.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's High Yield Savings Certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
Well, southbound I-15 looking much, much better. The delays have cleared. However, we still have the cleanup of an accident near 106 South, plus a new crash in Draper, southbound I-15 in the Gore area by the exit ramp at 114 South. Advanced Window Products, factory direct affordable windows. Call today. They're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindowsusa.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, rain showers continue through the morning with a high of only 82 today. We could see more showers late tonight. It warms up for the weekend with highs around 90. And right now, 72 degrees and cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Dave and Dujanovic.
There is a newly elected county clerk in Utah County, which is the person over the elections. The clerk is over the elections in a county, facing some, I think, very serious questions over an ask that he made for some voting records, which Lindsay Aerts, our very own political reporter, has reported he is not legally allowed to have those records. Lindsay's going to join us in just a moment and walk us through what happened. You read through her report on KSLNewsRadio.com. What was your initial thought?
Well, a lot of things. One is that we should all agree, I think, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what matters is that we protect everyone's right to vote and that vote is private, right? That we account
don't know.
for it.
You won't. Nobody can find out how somebody
right.
voted.
Like if I vote, I can tell you how I voted, but you cannot find out how I voted without me giving you that information, right?
You can't go back
other
through
than the people are
records.
actually counting it.
Okay.
And even that, we go through this whole process that's terribly secretive. We go to great lengths to make sure that we know that we can track a ballot, but how that ballot which person cast the vote for which candidate is very protected. And so people just need to know that is a very sacred area when it comes to how the voters are treated, and that information is very protected.
It's in Utah's Constitution, I'll just add. Yeah.
Lindsay Aerts on the microphone now. I want to actually play the report that aired here on KSL News Radio earlier. I also want to mention to our listeners that Marty Carpenter is in today for Dave Noriega. I love having you here and your background helping with political campaigns. You worked for quite some time for Governor Gary Herbert, and so you have been in political circles. So I appreciate the way you kind of painted that picture of how sacred our actual voting record is.
You can do a whole lot to try to get people to vote a certain way, but once they voted, you don't have a whole lot of
have
ability
access
to go
to
figure
that
out,
ballot,
and nor should you. Right?
Okay. So here's your report, Lindsay. And then we're gonna ask you to sort of fill in the blanks for us. You actually spoke to the county clerk, Aaron Davidson.
We've obtained records that show Davidson asked at least 2 different staff members for access to what are known as the cast vote records. These are essentially the digital copy of the ballots. A judge recently ruled these are protected election material because they could be used to show how someone voted.
It was a question, and it was a second opinion on the question. I should be able to ask several more people. I should be able to ask the county attorneys. What's your interpretation of me being able to see the cast vote records?
Davidson said he wanted them because Republican delegates who elected him still have questions about the 2022 midterms.
They wanted to know, and they never got a reasonable answer from anybody, so I just wanted to run an analysis on them.
Davidson says this complaint was filed by a disgruntled employee.
Okay, Lindsay Aerts joining us now here in studio. Lindsay, start filling in the blanks for us. Like, how did this complaint begin? Let's start there.
Okay, well, often in the media we receive tips about certain things, so I followed a few tips that I was receiving, and I was able to legally grandma request an HR complaint that was filed in the Utah County over the Utah County Clerk. And so I have received this record, and it was a complaint made by an employee. Now, let me be clear that I don't know who this employee is because the report is redacted, as it often is, right?
To protect the privacy.
Yeah,
of
protect
the
this person's identity.
Right.
So people within the system have probably figured out who it is, but I have not reported who it is because I know offline, but I'm not reporting who it is. And it doesn't really matter. It's an employee who made a complaint about Clerk Aaron Davidson. And in this report, this employee says that the asks from Davidson made him feel uncomfortable and that if they continued, he was worried it was rising to the level of being illegal, an illegal ask, right? Because what would have to happen is his staff would have to violate Utah election law, to go in and get these cast vote records. Now, I want to be very clear, too, that I'm not accusing Aaron Davidson of breaking any of Utah laws. I just wanted to shine light on the fact that he wanted access to this information. I think that's an important fact for voters to know. And so in my conversations with him, he maintains that this ask was just simply him trying to figure out what Utah law allowed for, because he says there's some confusion because Utah law does not specifically mention that cast vote records are protected, but a judge has recently ruled that cast vote records are considered election material, and those are protected.
Now, we have a longer clip of your interview with Davidson, so let's listen to that.
I haven't tried to dig a lot deeper. It was a question, and it was a second opinion on the question. I should be able to ask several more people. I should be able to ask the county attorneys. What's your interpretation of me being able to see the cast vote records? I'm the election authority. People voted for me. People want answers. And the previous clerks were not willing to give the data and give the answers that people wanted.
So help me understand then, Lindsay. What he's saying there actually makes some sense to me if I understand it correctly. He's saying, I'm the one who got elected into this. People asked me to look into it. I want this information so that I can look into it. Mm-hmm. To me, that's different than him saying, I'm going to get this information so I can turn around and give it to the people who requested it.
Yeah.
He's been elected into a position. So help me understand what I maybe don't understand there.
Sure. So he's not saying, I want to take this information and give it to delegates.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, I want to take this information and run an analysis on a past election because the people who are electing me, the delegates, and some of them believe in election conspiracy theories, have questions about whether the results were accurate, right? So they want this access to these cast vote records so they can do their own analysis on the results that have been tabulated.
So then if the county clerk accesses that information and runs the analysis, that's okay. It's not okay if he hands not what his analysis would be, but the raw material for that analysis off to whether it's a delegate or any other voter or
somebody outside the office.
Is that where it would cross the line?
No, actually, it's not legal for Aaron Davidson to have this information because of Utah law, because Utah law and a judge has already deemed that this material is considered protected material based on the judge's ruling. And so once an election is over, this material by law is sealed for 22 months. And no one can get back into it. Unless a judge orders that for some public interest reason, we need to get back into this.
And is that something we should expect that a county clerk would know? Like, should he have that understanding when he makes that request that this is probably in violation, or is this sort of a more arcane new type of ruling where maybe that wasn't top of mind? I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah. He does maintain that he was new in office, and this happened in May. He was elected in January. So 5 months into his tenure as county clerk, once he was elected, he requested access for this information. So he maintains that he was trying to figure out what Utah law allowed for. And that's why he was making these asks. And when they told him no, he was like, okay, let's move on. But
has he moved on? Or are the employees still? Are they still feeling any pressure to give these records?
I am working to get some other documents that could maybe answer that question, but I don't know.
And is anybody besides Lindsay Aerts of KSL News Radio looking into this that you're aware of?
I have reached out.
I'm looking up on Capitol Hill.
I have reached out to the state elections office. I have not heard back from them. I imagine if they are going to make sure they have all the facts before they comment on anything.
And through your reporting, you have found that these cast voter records are private, and you said use the word sealed.
Yeah.
For 22 months before they are destroyed.
Yeah, and in fact, there were two sisters that go by Two Red Pills online. They tried to sue for these cast vote records of 2022, and the judge said you're not allowed access to these because they are deemed election material, and state law requires that they're sealed for 22 months after an election.
So this is just my opinion here. The chill that I feel that somebody who's elected could get to my voting records and see who I voted for without me telling them.
Well, and
would be it's chilling. To
yeah,
me,
and let me be clear that the cast vote records won't technically show how someone voted, but it could be used to triangulate how someone voted. In these really small precincts, there may be 10 voters, right, in a precinct. And so a ballot could show their entire record of how they voted. It could be used to figure it out.
Well, it opens up the possibility that they can then go to smaller communities.
Yeah, and there's also identifying ballot numbers, right? So it doesn't say someone's name and address, but it could be used to show how someone voted.
We got to run because we've got some breaking news. But do we know who the delegates are that he said he was trying to get this information to?
I don't have that information.
Okay, Lindsay Aerts, KSL News Radio. Let's get to our breaking news right now. We've got President Trump. We're watching the motorcade right now. He's departing. Again, former President Trump. I'm trying to correct my behavior on that. Former President Trump.
It's kind of both, right?
It is.
You still have the title president, but yes, he is the former president.
He's departing New Jersey right now, heading for D.C., expected to board a plane. He was in court this afternoon. His arraignment time is at 4 o'clock East Coast time, which is 2 o'clock our time here. Right smack dab in the middle of Boyd Matheson's Inside Sources show. I'm sure we'll cut away to that when it happens. Not expected that it's going to be a long, lengthy hearing today. Arraignments are typically very short, and as we heard earlier today when we took our live news coverage back to Washington, D.C., and our ABC News correspondent, Marty, he will expected to enter a not guilty plea.
Yeah, and that's basically the extent of what he will do today is show up, probably wave to some cameras as he walks in, but actually what he does in the courtroom is stand up hear the charges, and then make a plea. And that's pretty much his day.
This has been kind of like rinse, repeat, right? I mean, President Trump has been in court a number of times in a number of different states and arraigned on a number of different cases and criminal charges. This particular indictment is a federal indictment handed up by a grand jury. It was filed just a couple of days ago. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, also obstruction and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, and specifically against the rights of our votes to be counted. And this goes back to November of 2020 through like January 6th of 2021, when hundreds and hundreds of people marched on the Capitol and into the Capitol. And also details some of the conspiracies alleged that went on to try to change how delegates had voted, and also how states had counted their votes.
And it all kind of ties in, like, what's the big theme that we're picking up then from the discussion we just had with Lindsay, and then what we're watching with President Trump. And it comes down to the the fundamental decision point, or the fundamental way we go about casting votes and ensuring people that the elections are fair. And no matter who you are, you want the election to ultimately come up with the result that it's supposed to have. We want ultimately the will of the people to prevail. It takes us to like this larger discussion of how do we do that in a way where we know that votes are being counted correctly, processed correctly, and then that information is being protected after the fact so that people don't know who you voted for unless you want to tell them. It's a larger discussion that I feel like almost to some extent since 2020, we've had arguments about, was it an insurrection? Was it an insurrection? Did the president try to incite this? Did he not try to incite this? Was the vote stolen? Was it not stolen? And where we need to evolve to is a discussion about how do we ensure, what can we do to make sure that we're all comfortable, or at least relatively comfortable with the fact that the election will produce the result that people have. Now, I've walked through this process because I've been part of campaigns. I've gone and seen the process in Davis County. I've gone and sat with the Davis County clerk and watched how they process votes that are coming in on vote by mail. It's very intricate, right? We have a system that really tracks these things well. I suppose there's some elements I don't know, like could someone produce a fake ballot, and could they produce many fake ballots? I don't know that as well, but the impression I've been left with as I've looked at this and gone and toured these vote counting facilities is that to just throw out the claim that an election is stolen, there's nothing more decentralized that I can think of within our government operation than how elections are run, right? It's run very locally. You go vote. Yes, you're voting in the presidential election. You're voting in a statewide election. But you vote in a precinct, and that precinct is part of a county, and that county has a clerk, and that person has to sign off of it before it gets sent to the state, and on and on. Like, it's very decentralized. And I think if people got a chance to look at that process, they would feel a lot more comfortable with how elections are processed. The problem is people are probably more inclined to say, I don't trust it, than they are to take the 10, 15, 20 minutes, half hour to really see what the process is. And I think that's one of the friction points we have.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Hi, it's Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
Why should you start your day with us?
We have decades of news experience between us.
And we take your trust seriously.
Come here for news tomorrow, 5 to 9.
On KSL.
A change in the weather is here.
We do have a chance for showers and storms from north to south.
And we'll be revising the outlook daily.
That extra cloud cover is going to help quite a bit to keep things on the cooler side.
Get traffic and the latest weather updates every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
Now, I have a confession to make. When I saw the roster for this year's productions at Hale Center Theater, they all look great. But the one that jumped off the page for me, it's a family favorite for the right family, and it was Newsies. It is absolutely delightful. But here's the bad news. It is completely sold out. But there's a silver lining. The good news is Hale Center Theater is adding 4 p.m. matinees. Newsies is running through August 26th. If you thought you had missed your chance to see this great, enthusiastic production at Hale Center Theater, there's still time to get your matinee tickets. And don't forget, too, just around the corner is Catch Me If You Can, Around the World World in 80 Days, and just in time for the holiday season, Elf, the musical. It's time to go to hct.org. Lock down your tickets, especially get your tickets for Newsies. That's hct.org, Hale Center Theater.
Filing your taxes can be difficult, and every year seems to bring even greater challenges. As you prepare for tax season, potential audits, employee retention credits, and child tax credits are just a few things that may be on your mind. Certified public accountants are the trusted advisors you can rely on to address your specific tax needs. As you try to make sense of tax filing this year, know that your CPA receives constant training and updates throughout the year. CPAs are an integral part of tax policy conversations in Utah as well. Along with extensive tax expertise, CPAs also provide personal financial planning, business growth strategies, and general accounting services. Hire a CPA for the best in tax planning. Listen to KSL every Monday for tax tips from the UACPA. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. That's uacpa.org.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, we got 2 months worth of rain in Utah just yesterday. The monsoon surge will be drying out later today. Second, the little kitten named Tater Tot has died. She drew attention around the world on social media. And third, thousands of young Catholics from all over the world are greeting Pope Francis on his trip to Portugal. Right now, 70 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic have inside sources.
The U.S. credit rating or debt rating was downgraded. It doesn't happen very often. This is a very rare occurrence, thankfully. But it went from the highest AAA rating, and we now have an AAA plus or AA plus. Is that Boyd's shaking his head? Boyd, they cannot see you shake your head yes. Like I agree with Debbie on radio. I want you to say the word yes out loud when I talk sometimes and say things because then our listeners know that
I want you to have all the credit, Debbie.
Editor-in-Chief of Investopedia, Caleb Silver, heard him today on Utah's Morning News with Tim and Amanda. He really did a great job explaining this drop in the credit rating. So let's put this in his lap to explain it.
Kind of like getting a ticket in the mail for a light you ran a couple of months ago. This was really around the debt ceiling impasse that eventually was resolved, but Fitch is citing that. They're citing a lack of governance and the inability of our political leaders to come to terms on government spending, on things like the debt ceiling, and then the upcoming budget conversations, which are going to happen by September 30th when the fiscal year ends for the government. They say, we're overspending and our political leaders won't talk to each other about these types of things, which is the reason for the downgrade. But Moody's may follow suit. S&P has so far said it will not.
Okay, so we go from a AAA rating to a AA plus. I'm guessing that's the next one down, right?
Down. Yep.
We can take a little pride because Utah still has a AAA bond rating, which the country does not. So congratulations, we have better credit than the country we are a part of. In practicality, though, okay, this essentially says there's less confidence in our ability to pay back the money we owe, or there's less confidence in our ability to be given credit by our many creditors, or both.
Yeah, it's both of those, and it really has an undermining effect in terms of the U.S. as kind of the gold standard, the currency for the world, because people are saying, well, look, they're not handling themselves right. We like to call it governing like grown-ups, and that was actually Fitch actually mentioned that as they gave the downgrade. To say, look, they're not governing like grown-ups, and so that does not give us confidence in moving forward. And, of course, Janet Yellen went wild, as did the White House, that they were so shocked, that they were so surprised at this downgrade. And to me, the fact that anybody is shocked is shocking and disturbing. This is the absolute predictability of consequences. This is not a radical wild thing.
We have like a $19 trillion credit card bill at the moment. To some extent, yes, I'm more shocked that people will still lend us money than I am that someone would
$32 trillion
judge
is not small.
Maybe a little bit of a risky bet at this point.
All right, Boyd, I want to. You got to bring the greatest hit. So I gotta hear Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen saying, I'm just so shocked.
Fitch's decision is puzzling in light of the economic strength we see in the United States. I strongly disagree with Fitch's decision, and I believe it is entirely unwarranted. Its flawed assessment is based on outdated data and fails to reflect improvements across a range of indicators, including those related to governance, that we've seen over the past 2.5 years. Despite the gridlock, we've seen both parties come together to pass legislation to resolve the debt limit, as well as to make historic investments in our infrastructure and American competitiveness.
Now Debbie's shaking her
No,
head. Just I want all our listeners to know. Debbie's shaking her head.
This is I'm shaking it. No way.
Yeah.
She's puzzled.
Yeah.
But okay, all the other stuff that she's talking about.
So she's complaining
but nothing
about.
she said is inaccurate, right? We did
No.
ultimately come together to
We
pass
did.
to kick the can down the road.
Weeks ago.
We did not default. Is essentially her message.
But we were going to.
And she was complaining. She was complaining about the rules and the referees. And as we know from any sporting event, if you're complaining about the rules or the referees, you're losing. And
that's a good way of looking at this.
They're losing. She's complaining about the rules that Fitch used to analyze it, saying they're outdated rules. The referees, Moody's, Fitch, and so on, they're the referees. But here's the reality of what Fitch and others are looking at when they give a credit and a debt rating. So they're looking at fiscal policy. What is going on there? What is not going on there? They are looking at spending. And every year we are spending more than we are bringing in. Even though we are bringing in record revenue in the IRS, IRS has never brought in more money in the history of the country.
So they're doing their job.
Doing their job. They're bringing it in. And yet we have that. So there's also a whole conversation that's not being had around Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those social safety net programs that will be insolvent within the decade for sure, unless there are some changes and adult grown-up governance happening in Congress and in the White House.
So on the political side, let me start with this. She mentioned something along these lines, that the standoff over the debt ceiling is part of what led to this downgrade. Does this this is the first time that it's been downgraded. So now members of Congress see this, just like Janet Yellen is also dealing with this. Does this is almost a ridiculous question to ask, Boyd, so bear with me.
Oh, I want to hear it
Does
now.
this discourage debt ceiling standoffs in the future?
It won't change that dynamic at all, sadly, because of the politics of it all. Both sides have decided this is a good way to do politics, to raise campaign cash and to have as a wedge issue when you go into an election season.
So we just need to tax the campaign cash they raise off of these.
There we go.
Marty, that is
There we go.
exactly where my brain
There we
went.
go.
It's like, if that's what you're going
we
to
could
use.
do that.
If that's where we're raising
That's
money,
winning.
Right.
I think
yeah.
people would, and actually the American people would buy into that.
Yeah.
If that's where it's going to go, that would be a very different conversation. But the problem is that if we're not willing to have a serious conversation, so Congress is in session until after Labor Day, and then we know they have to pass the 12 spending bills before the end of September, or the government isn't funded. And they haven't. They've got one done. That's it. They've got a long, long way to go. So we will have another shutdown showdown, and that will impact the perception in terms of this. And so to me, it all comes back to absolute predictability of consequences.
And they're in recess until
After Labor Day.
After Labor Day. So they're back in their home states doing what they need to do back at home. In the meantime, we're like, are they going to get it done? Are they going to get it done? It's another
and my
drama.
prediction, you can put the panic button away. We'll have a continuing resolution before the end of September that will kick the can until December the 14th.
Yeah, whichever side you're going to bet on, always bet on the continuing resolution, right? Always kick the can down the road. That's part of the reason that our credit
That's why
gets
we're getting
downgraded,
downgraded.
because
Exactly.
we won't handle the issue like adults. We won't figure out the best way to go. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the problem is we spend more money than we bring in. And when we do that, we need to go borrow from people. This credit rating essentially says what kind of interest rate are they going to charge to us, and how much money are we currently spending right now to pay off, just to service the debt. That means to pay the interest on the debt, not to pay down the principal. It's astounding, and it's actually something that we really, really need to prioritize as a country.
And it's predictable. It's all predictable.
Boyd Matheson's show starts at 1. It goes till 3. And as usual, you have another presidential indictment right smack dab in the middle of your show.
We'll watch the motorcade.
All right. Watch the motorcade. I know you're going to be covering that live when it happens at 2 o'clock our time.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour: Utah is rolling out a new campaign to warn about the dangers of social media. This comes as the state is also undertaking lawsuits against some social media companies 2 ads will hit the airwaves and, ironically, will run in social media. Governor Cox says it's important to meet people where they are.
And I always want to clarify, social media isn't inherently good or bad. It's how we use it and the content. And there are some bad parts of social media, and I would say the algorithms are bad. The addictive qualities of social media are bad. And so that's what we're trying to do.
The state is currently suing TikTok. The governor says more lawsuits against other providers are coming. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has had no comment on the discovery of a human body alongside the floating barrier that Abbott deployed last month in the Rio Grande. ABC's Jim Ryan says the buoys are intended to prevent illegal crossings from Mexico into the United States.
As the floating border barrier was being strung down 1,000 feet of the river separating the United States from Mexico, proponents predicted that it would save lives by forcing migrants to enter the U.S. legally through ports of entry. But now a body has been found in the river near the buoys. It was on the Mexican side, so it'll be up to that country to determine the identity and cause of death.
That's ABC's Jim Ryan reporting. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average up 41 points on the day right now. The NASDAQ is also up 41 points. And our KSL weather. The rain is going to taper off, but it's not quite done yet. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Made to shine. Real stories from Shane Company customers.
They were all there. My grandparents, all the cousins. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. They were so proud. After the ceremony, my mom gave me a necklace with my birthstone. I wear it every day. Sometimes I even think it carries a secret superpower that when I wear it, everything will be okay.
We carry the widest selection of handcrafted jewelry made to help everybody shine bright. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone are counting down to the kickoff of college football with a huge giveaway. This summer, you could win a new travel trailer from Bish's RV. Family owned for 30 years. Bish's RV has always helped RVers go play. And you'll win a pair of BYU season tickets as the Cougars prepare to take on the Big 12. Enter now. Text the word football to 57500 or visit kslsports.com/contests.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's High Yield Savings Certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
We still have a right lane partially blocked on southbound I-15 as you're approaching near 106 South in Sandy from an earlier traffic issue, including a crash. But we have a little bit of backup, but most of the delays have cleared out. Also an accident northbound I-15, not far from SR 92 Temp Highway. It's out of traffic to the left, and scanners calling out a traffic issue with drivers impacted in a couple of directions. Redwood Road 400 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, rain showers will continue through the morning with a high of only 82 today. And we could see more showers late tonight. It'll warm up for the weekend with highs around 90. And right now, 73 degrees, mostly cloudy at KSL News Radio. 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Presidential indictment. In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
Marty Carpenter in today with me here at Broadcast House. He's in for Dave Noriega, and we are sitting here on CNN and watching CNN's coverage. In fact, all the networks at some point had that looks like a helicopter shot of the motorcade.
The beauty of 24-hour news, watching people drive.
Former President Trump leaving New Jersey en route to Washington, D.C. for his arraignment on this latest stack of 4 charges that were unsealed earlier this week, unsealed on the very first day of August, has to do with what prosecutors are referring to as a conspiracy to basically defraud the United States, obstruct an official meeting, which was what was going on Capitol Hill back in D.C.
Official proceeding, yeah.
Official proceeding, thank you.
The proceeding of certifying the vote, I believe, is what
of the electorate,
to.
Yeah. And then also interfering with our right to vote and have our vote be counted. And that goes to the pressure that in the indictment it spells out what was going on in different states. What was going on in Pennsylvania, what was happening in Georgia, what was happening in Nevada, what was happening in Arizona, and also in Wisconsin, in Michigan. There were a number of states that were a part of his plan, it's been accused by prosecutors, to overturn their results, which were in favor of now President Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't know. This is Pollyanna-ish probably for me, but I try to look at these things and say, whichever side of the political spectrum you're on, try to flip this as to think about it if it was the other guy, right? Right? Like, let's say you're a very ardent Donald Trump fan, right? You've got the hat, you voted for him twice, you're a big fan, whatever. That's perfectly valid.
I saw that guy in a Mustang the other day.
And it's perfectly valid. If that's
the flag was waving off the back of the Mustang. I know who you're talking about.
But if that's your position, that's perfectly valid. You're entitled to that position. And you can think one way about what's happening to the former president right now, the charges he's facing, the procedures he's going through. But how would you feel the same way about it if it were if let's just take out, let's not Donald Trump, let's say it was Barack Obama, right? Would you feel the same way about it? Would you be like, well, you depoliticize it a little bit and say, look, if this is true, if it was just proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that these things happened, I think we can kind of all agree, hopefully, that that's bad, right? If we can actually prove that someone was part of a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted, that is bad. It would be bad if a Democrat did it. It's bad if a Republican does it. So what we should be in search of here is, let's figure out the truth. Let's have the most honest, open, transparent, just procedure to figure out if this happened. Because if it happened, I think we can all agree that if the names were redacted, you'd say that's not something we can stand for, regardless of which party you support.
It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it from both sides. Tom Dempsey with News Nation standing by live for us in Washington, D.C. He's the D.C. correspondent. Hi, Tom. Bring us up to speed on what's going on there as they prep for his arraignment.
It's really interesting being out there because you can imagine. I mean, I've been in this industry for, over almost 15 years, and I've never seen as big of a media presence for any story that I've covered until today. Many people out there. We're seeing a few protesters show up, some for former President Donald Trump, some very much against him and holding signs. So the crowd, we're definitely expecting it to grow, as the day goes on. But, obviously a lot of people watching this today all across the country. We're expecting Trump to be at the courthouse sometime between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern time. And, he's going to be fingerprinted and formally read his charges. I mean, the hearing itself should be fairly routine. But obviously so much attention on this right now.
Now, how's the security there? I'm sure it's very tight.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's police barricades surrounding the D.C. federal courthouse. We saw several different types of officers with dogs, obviously, and presumably the bomb sniffing dogs there and trying to find anything that might be suspicious, such as bags and such. Lots of security. As I was making my way out for a lunch break, I saw, groups of D.C. police officers standing by, keeping watch of the site I saw, groups of, I believe it was federal police keeping an eye on it. And one of my colleagues actually noticed a sniper on the roof of the Canadian Embassy keeping watch. The Canadian Embassy is right across the street from the federal courthouse. So, yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Lots of security. And we are talking about a federal courthouse, too. So there's tons of security even to get inside the building. You have to go through a metal detector to get in there. And, I believe they cut off access to get inside. If you wanted to get, maybe sit in the hearing room, they cut that off at 12:30. And again, keep in mind, we're not expecting this hearing until about 4 p.m. So lots and lots of security outside the courthouse. Yeah.
Any change in the way this has been secured versus how we've seen it in other court proceedings for the former president? And anything heightened? I think if I remember right, the Senate building was evacuated yesterday. Don't know if they've had if that ties in with how what level of security. I mean, you make a good point. It's a federal courthouse. There's a lot of security. There's a former president of the United States going to be there. That's a lot of security. We've got some overlapping security jurisdictions here. But any changes to that in any way that that evacuation from the Senate building plays into this?
Well, first off, you asked, how does this compare to the other cases? It was interesting. I was talking to a colleague of mine who actually covered the indictment down in Miami for the classified documents case about just the presence of people outside, whether it was protesters or media. And he said the D.C. crowd today is much bigger than what he saw in Miami. So to address that, first off, the bigger crowd today, but then also, following up on the Senate, clearly, I mean, we're talking about Washington, D.C. here, and even some of the charges that are a part of this case, deal with January 6th, which is still very fresh in the minds of people who work on Capitol Hill and reporters who work on Capitol Hill. So, I think of just the sensitivity of this case dealing directly with January 6th. We saw what happened on that day. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of, political narratives coming in from the Republican side about, the weaponization of the federal government and, the politicized nature of the Department of Justice. So I think, who the heck knows what could happen, when you're dealing with such a charged trial like this. On one hand, like I said, you have more conservative voters. You have the politicians coming out on the Republican side saying that this is all, it's not a fair trial. These are not fair charges against the other side, against former President Trump. And then on, maybe the more moderate or left-hand side, you are saying that he, thinks he deserves to be behind bars, former President Donald Trump. So it's just such a charged political atmosphere. You can talk legally all you want right now, but there's just so many political narratives coming in about this. And I think that plays into how much security we're seeing today.
Tom Dempsey, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Tom Dempsey is a Washington correspondent with News Nation. We often turn to News Nation for live coverage. They're everywhere often and are more than happy to join the show and help us set the scene of what's going on back in Washington, D.C. as former President Donald Trump makes his way from his home in New Jersey to Washington, D.C. And as he was talking about lawmakers saying these are trumped up charges, so to speak, and this isn't fair. And my mind went to the hundreds of people, more than 1,000 people have been criminally charged in the January 6th breach of the Capitol, where the electoral vote was being certified by the Senate and also the Vice President of the United States at the time. And I thought, well, some of them are serving up to 18 years, 14 years, 10 years, 7 years, 8 years in prison. 500, I think, have been sentenced to some sort of either, prison sentence or home confinement. Now they have laid out this involvement that they've alleged that he was involved in an ongoing conspiracy since the election day of 2020 until January of 2021 on January 6th. So are they saying the same thing about all of those other people who are now serving time behind bars and will lose a good portion of their life to the confines of a prison cell? I'm not hearing a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, one big distinction between those two is that President Trump was at the White House while this was, whatever your take may be on January 6th, right. He did not physically go and knock in a window and enter the building and so on. So there's an important distinction probably to be made in that respect. I was wondering about this when talking about security is, okay, former President Trump is going to court. Will he hold court? Will he leave, as he leaves the proceeding, will he take questions from the press? Like, will his security set up for that? Mm-hmm. I wonder, I can't imagine he would miss the opportunity to, like, if the image right now is he goes to court and he walks out and it's calm and orderly, and however that goes. Do you want to just maintain that, hey, he went and did the thing and he's out and away from the court, or do you want him to stand there and take questions and essentially have a chance to lay out his public case as to why this is all not the way it should be from his perspective?
If he does speak, we will carry it live. If he does speak, we will take it live.
I was just trying to think through it as a former, as a press guy going, well, how would I want to treat this? Would I take advantage of the opportunity or just shuffle off and then go control your environment somewhere
Will he
else?
say anything new, or will he play the greatest hits?
Dave and Dujanovic.
Before Dave and Debbie get started each day, this station is all news all morning.
And later today, we follow up on those stories as you drive home.
Get important news all morning and all afternoon.
Here on KSL News Radio.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. The Policy Project is a nonprofit organization that promotes and advocates for solution-based policy to remove barriers to education and the workforce. Founder and President Emily Bell McCormick shares more on the launch of their new global initiative, the Period Positive Workplace.
While the Policy Project is best known for our work on the Period Project, which provides free access to period products to all of Utah's K-12 students in public and charter schools, we are continuing our work to end period poverty with the launch of the Global Period Positive Workplace. 8 out of 10 women have started their period unexpectedly in public without the products they need. Businesses and organizations that become period positive workplaces support our female workforce by providing period products for employees and patrons. For about $5 per year per female employee, period positive workplaces can increase employee productivity, reduce absenteeism, and support employee morale. It's also a quick and concrete way to make the workplace more female friendly. Additionally, this year, the Policy Project worked closely with Governor Spencer Cox and Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson to help Utah become the first state in the nation to offer free period products in state buildings.
Businesses globally are joining the Period Positive Workplaces movement, including Morgan Stanley, Mountain America Credit Union, the Larry H. Miller Companies, and more. To learn how you can get involved, visit the Policy Project website. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
You could throw your flip-flop at a bug.
Ew, a bug, get it.
But the chances of actually hitting it
Over there!
are statistically
It's still alive.
unlikely. Good thing nature's got your back. Stem bug killers combine powerful active ingredients found in plants, like lemongrass and geraniol, and scientifically engineer them into effective bug-fighting formulas, safe for use as directed around people, pets, and throughout the home. Stem, rooted in nature, optimized by science.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
If you've had painful kidney stones, you know you don't want more. Moonstone Stone Stopper is a simple solution that works. Created and recommended by top kidney stone doctors, Stone Stopper is an alkali citrate formula scientifically proven to prevent crystallization. Stone Stopper's patented formula is gentle on the stomach and is available in easy-to-swallow capsules, gummies, and powder drinks that make hydration delicious. Stone Stopper is available at participating Walmart and Walgreens stores. Look for the red stop sign on the bottom shelf of the vitamin aisle. For more information or to find a store near you, go to stonestopper.com.
At Shields, we know luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, which means that during the season, the only element of the hunt that we actually control is the work we put in and the gear we trust. So stop by the Shields sale event July 29th through August 6th and save on brands like Vortex, Raven, Benchmade, and select Shields Outfitters gear. Our Shields experts are ready to prepare you for success on your next adventure. Shields, earn your moment.
Do you have neck or back pain? New Spine Chiropractic can help. Take advantage of this special offer, only valid this week. Schedule your appointment and receive a free adjustment along with a free hydrotherapy treatment for the entire family. New Spine is located inside the shops at Fort Union. This offer is good for this week only, so schedule a free adjustment and receive a free hydrotherapy treatment. Go to newspine.com/Utah. That's nuspine.com/Utah. New Spine Chiropractic at Fort Union.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, some lost hikers were able to add a ride in a National Guard helicopter to their adventure for the day. Second, Utah's governor is using ads in social media to warn about the dangers of social media for kids. And third, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is coming under criticism again after bodies were found in the Rio Grande near areas where the state had deployed floating buoys with barbed wire. Right now, 73 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Dave and Dujanovic.
You know that whale? You know that whale on, like, is it 9th and 9th?
9th and 9th.
It's a big whale. I think the whale has some competition. That whale, when it went in, it got just so much publicity. But it's kind of like, it's like art, right?
Right. That's what art is supposed to do, right? Beautify the space and then get people talking about it and hold your attention for however long it can.
Well, now we've got shipping containers that are being, I think, Mayor, are you there? Is the mayor there? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear
hi.
me? Hello?
Hi. Okay. I'm trying to read through this.
Mayor Aaron Mendenhall. Just so people know which
we're
mayor.
just like,
there are many mayors.
Hey, May. We're just like, hey, May. Hey, Aaron. So glad to have you on the line. I'm trying to read through this press release. Just tell us what's going on with these shipping containers and how they're going to inspire us when we walk by them.
Well, I think to the point you just made, good art also makes you think. And the whale made a lot of people think. It still does. And these shipping containers, this one that we just unveiled today is like launching off the ground. It's flying through the sky. At the highest point, it's 39 feet off the ground. And it's a full-blown steel, 40-foot-long structural shipping container, painted orange, and it says NWQ SLC, Northwest Quadrant, Salt Lake City. And it is just there for the sake of art. And it's in a place that is out there where we have a lot of dropship warehouses, ton of commerce going on, semi-trucks moving 24 hours a day. It's not a place you expect to see public art, but you're also going to see portions of shipping containers sticking at funny angles out of some of those warehouse buildings. And there's several of those locations. So at least I think it's got a lot of truck drivers and workers who are out there scratching their heads like, what is this the result of an accident? How did this happen? But it's there for the sake of art.
So, okay, you sort of described it, and I started picturing one thing in my head, and I'm sure that Deb did the same. So it's a shipping container, a regular 40-foot-long shipping container, like you would see on a train.
25,000 pounds.
Okay, so
yeah.
Hefty. It's of size. It's of magnitude. And you said it's 9 feet in the air, so is it suspended? Like, is there kind of a pole that holds it up? Or help us understand what we're going to be looking at.
Yes, it's up in the air. It's mounted off of a single pole, and it's at an angle, so it looks like it's kind of launching or landing awkwardly. And it's 25,000 pounds of a 40-foot-long shipping container that was all manufactured here in Salt Lake City. And you've got to check it out. It's right off of California Avenue at 3775 West. And as you're driving along California, if you pay attention to some of those other buildings along the route, you'll see the other pieces of shipping containers that are sticking out of some of the buildings.
Well,
and more to come.
You just changed my route home. I was going to jump on I-15 and just put on the tunes, open the sunroof, and just go to right down south and turn. Now I'm going to be driving down California Avenue to check it. I was just down there last night. I didn't see it, but I don't think I was far enough west on that on California Avenue. And are you gonna start? Was it painted? I mean, let's just start there. Is it? It's
painted orange. It took quite a bit of engineering because you can imagine the wind force. It's also in the flight pathway, so the engineers had to work really carefully about how it is and where it is. But it is very strong. You got to look up a little bit. And 3775 West, California Avenue, it's painted bright orange.
Mayor, are you doing okay? I mean, Has your staff
this
taken
is a
your
gift.
temperature? Are we good? Are we good at City Hall? Is this going to be a thing? Are we going to have shipping
We're so
containers
good.
hanging from the rafters all over the city now? Is this how this is going to go?
No, these are a gift. They are an investment by Steve Price and Price Real Estate, who owns quite a few of the warehouse buildings out there. I think all of the buildings that have the portions of shipping containers sticking out of them are probably ones owned by Price Real Estate. This is not a city-owned installation like the Whale. The Whale is city art, but this is out there on private property. He's got a permit from the city to do it, but it's really a gift from Price Real Estate.
So, Mayor, tell us a little bit about your perspective on the value of public art, right? Like suddenly there's this whale on 9th, and people talk about it, and that drives people down there to see the whale. And then the benefit of that is, not only do they get to see some kind of cool piece of art, take pictures, they throw it on Instagram or whatever, and it tells people, hey, look what we've got in Salt Lake City. But there are businesses around that whale where people now are going, I'm going to stop and grab a drink here. Well, hey, let's go get some ice cream here. Just talk to me a little bit about like the benefits you see of investments in public art and beautification of the city.
Oh, it's innumerable. The benefits they truly are immeasurable, but it's partially because they generate a sense of place. And placemaking makes someone feel not only like they've arrived and it's a unique space that they're in, but it helps to locate businesses. It attracts the local economy and stimulates it around there, and it gives neighborhoods and neighbors a sense of identity. And, there was a lot of controversy about the whale when it was announced, when we selected that piece of art. I'm not sure that this flying shipping container is going to generate controversy, but art should help people think this place is cared about. There is investment happening here that isn't simply utility investment, that we as a community care about this space, and we're thinking more about the space than what might meet the eye. Meaning, it's a roundabout, it's a functional piece of transportation infrastructure, but this is also a neighborhood that has an identity, and it's an evolving one, and that's true also of the Northwest Quadrant, which is thousands of acres where we have commerce happening, where the inland port is going to grow into. We've got millions of migratory birds that fly right over that shipping container every single year to and from the Great Salt Lake. There's a lot going on there. And art, I think, helps us think about the complexities in any space. And I think it stimulates a sense of caring and a sense of identity. And especially in a place like the Northwest Quadrant where there's not a lot of homes out there. It's mostly commerce happening. It's so cool to have someone say, this is worth the investment of public art, and I'm going to put my money in it. And we're grateful to Steve Price for doing that.
Mayor Erin Mendenhall, thanks so much. That was actually a really fun conversation to have with you today on this Thursday morning. And I'm going to be I'm walking down to Blue Copper. I'm getting my half-price cup of coffee after the show. And then I'm going to hop in the car. I'm going to head out down California Avenue and check it out. Mayor, thanks so much.
I want to see it on today's TikTok.
Today's TikTok.
You will. Thanks for
the
having me.
whale has his own Twitter account that probably has a ton more followers than I'll ever have. So I know, public art is a big deal. Mayor, thanks so much again for that conversation. I want to let our listeners know, first of all, thank you, Marty Carpenter, for being here today. Watching right now the tarmac in New Jersey, President Trump's plane is there. He'll be taking off to Washington, D.C. any moment for his arraignment, and Maria will have a lot more on that.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7